When we're done with presenting the awards today, downstairs there's some refreshments. There's obviously a lot of people here today for it, so thank you for supporting the people that are exceptional choices for all these categories today. I'm going to present the first one myself. As somebody who works professionally in journalism, Eric Thorpe, come on up. If anybody's ever seen the blog What's Wild in New Hampshire, if you haven't, I'd be surprised if you haven't. That's how I first saw you. And I first met Eric at the New Hampshire Audubon Policy, it was a policy committee meeting.
Yes, I'm still on the board.
I met you first there in person. One thing I'll say is, as somebody who works in journalism, is consistency over a long period of time is something very few people are capable of. So I appreciate what you've done, and your latest book, What's Wild, is now out, and I think this is well earned. And so thank you from all this commission and the department for everything you've done.
Thank you.
And if I know the staff is probably, many people have probably worked with you over the years and whatnot, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
Continue to do. Appreciate
Very
it.
good.
Come on, Eric, say it once. What's wild?
It's what's wild in New Hampshire.
I'm now going to pass it on to law enforcement to handle the next two awards. So, Colonel, and they're right here.
So the first one I'm going to do is to recognize the Pemi Valley Search and Rescue Group. So I'd like to have two members come up. I'd like the founding father. I shouldn't call you that, Alan, because I put you in the same way. Alan is actually responsible for creating this outstanding team. And then I want to call up the current president, Jamie Bernard. And then the other one who doesn't want to come up here is Lieutenant Nealon. I want you to come up here. Lieutenant Nealon, for those that don't know, is the search and rescue team lieutenant for the state. So it's safe to say that Jim probably does 80% of all of our search and rescue missions. So a few years ago, the commission decided to recognize search and rescue volunteer groups for the work and effort that they put in for the department, for our department, and the whole mission of saving people and bringing them down off the mountains that you folks read about on a weekly basis. Unique thing about these teams, and Pemi is certainly a great example of that, is these are volunteer groups that come and help us. I call them professional volunteers, as they're above a regular volunteer because they're trained, but at the end of the day, they are in fact volunteers. So the Pemi team was founded by Alan, I believe, in 2005, so they've recently celebrated their, it doesn't seem possible, their 20th anniversary of doing search and rescue in the state. They participate in 30 to 40 missions, sometimes a little higher than that each year with us. There have been occasions where this particular group is so advanced and done such a great job for us that they in fact respond to these missions without us. That has happened on a couple of different occasions, which is pretty tremendous. So any average carryout that we do, it requires 15 to 18 people. I have on any given day 15 to 18 officers working statewide. So without these groups, we couldn't do these missions. We make one phone call to this group. Jim tells them what he needs for resources, and then that's all we have to do. Pemi shows up. Those team members are fit. They're physically capable of carrying out the missions that we ask. They bring their own equipment, and they go nonstop certainly without pay, and a lot of times without food even. So we have moved to buying them pizza on occasion. That was an act of Congress to get the state to allow us to do that, but we can do that now. If you go to the Pemi website, you will see it's been created and handled in an incredibly professional manner, and it promotes the sport of hiking. Most importantly for us, it promotes safety. It promotes good planning and safety. It's a well done, well crafted site. It also talks about the volunteers and what it takes to volunteer, and I personally like this part, so I wanted to read it to you. So a good candidate for the Pemi Search and Rescue Team will drop everything to regularly respond to calls whenever they come in, day or night, weekend or weekday, navigate on and off trail while keeping themselves safe in a wilderness environment, day or night, regardless of weather, and hike for many miles over rough terrain and varied weather, 18 to 20 hours at a time. And they failed to mention that all of this is done without a nickel of pay. So you give up your day's pay and you come help New Hampshire Fish and Game, and we'll thank you and maybe give you a slice of pizza at the end of it. So the work they do is absolutely outstanding. They are an incredible team. The other thing that I take great delight in telling you is that relationships have been built between these team members and some of our officers, where they spend time off duty together, which is kind of neat, kind of incredible. It's a trusting team, and we could not do this without them. So it is with great honor that we present them with the Volunteer Search and Rescue Team Award for 2024. Yes, you can.
So my name's Alan Clark, as he said. I did found this organization back in 2005. In the 20 years that we've been in existence, we've done over 500 missions. Those are 500 could range from a very simple carry-out to a week-long search for somebody, unfortunately, that got lost. We are a team. We're not individuals. We are a team. Several of the team members are here today in show of support. But one of the things that I did want to bring to the attention of the commission and everybody else, yes, we play a very important role in search and rescue throughout the state. We're the busiest. We have the most members. We have about 80 members. But we wouldn't be what we were today if it wasn't for the conservation officers and their support. So it goes back to when Lieutenant Bagadas was the lieutenant in charge of search and rescue. He started us off and was always encouraging and made certain that the conservation officers recognized they couldn't do their job if it wasn't for us. And so together we kind of created a bond. We started the pizza deal, and when we started, the conservation officers would be over here and we'd be over there, and we worked through that, and now they're with us. The color of the shirt doesn't seem to matter, and a lot of that goes back to Lieutenant Bagadas. But that was followed up by Lieutenant Nealon, who I know many of you think has a gruff exterior, but he's got a heart of gold and is so concerned about not only the safety of his men and women, but also very much concerned about the volunteers and very concerned about the victim that we're attempting to either rescue or find. You've got one hell of a guy. So I've been doing this for a long time. The deal is when he retires, I go, and I'm hoping that means for at least a few more years. So a big thanks to your conservation officers, but in particular Lieutenant Neal.
What I'd like to do for the search and rescue, and so if I could have you come up also, I would like the two of you and Lieutenant, if you could come around each commissioner so we can personally shake your hand for what you've done. We get notified of every rescue that these folks do, and sometimes it's amazing how many times in a week.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations, well deserved.
You too. You bet. Congratulations, well deserved. Thank you. You're my
Before we do the last award, I did want to mention, we did have a fourth award for Volunteer Award of Excellence, which is Dennis Walsh, who couldn't be here today, but it's my understanding there might be some people in the audience that came here for him. Am I correct that Dennis is not here today, just to clarify? So we'll be presenting this to him next month for anybody that is here. So with that, I'm going to let you take over again, Colonel.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now I would ask Maria Colby to come up here. And Maria, you can bring whoever you like. So Maria is a very bashful, very good friend of New Hampshire Fish and Games and has been for almost 40 years. And the last thing Maria wants is any kind of public recognition. However, she ran into some retired colonels who she provided services for, who don't really care what Maria thinks, they want to honor her. And I thought it was pretty cool that they asked us to do this. So it started with retired Colonel Ron Alley. I'd like you to come up, sir. It was followed up by retired Colonel Jeff Gray. Jeff, I want you to come up, because I can make you do it now. Another colonel who wrote a letter for Maria was retired Colonel Marty Garabedian. And Doc Payne, who was a former state vet, longtime friend of New Hampshire Fish and Game, also wrote a letter to honor. So she had kind of the A-list nominating her for this award. So a little history about Maria. She started in 1987. She decided that she wanted to do what she could, volunteer her time to help animals, birds and mammals in the state of New Hampshire. So she took it upon herself to open this shelter on her own dime, frankly, at that time. And to start helping us with rehabbing injured and sick wild animals. She has since expanded that significantly. She's gotten some grants, and the Wildlife Heritage Foundation has donated money to her, and she has quite a place over in Henniker where she nurses young animals back to health. My staff, again, could not function without this young lady. I asked guys as they came in today, I said, when do you think Maria started? Oh, I've been on for 25 years. She was here when I got here. So none of them could tell us how long she'd been here, and that's because she's been doing it for 38 years. None of us have been here for 38 years, so total. I'm close, but not quite there. So that is something unbelievable, first of all, and I can't imagine how many animals that she has rescued and released back in the wild in that length of time, really on her own time and using her own money. So the award, the Ellis Hatch Award, which is our most coveted award, is truly designed for people like Maria Colby. So we were thrilled to be able to give it to her. So it is with great honor that we present to Maria Colby the Ellis Hatch Award for 2024.
Through those doors and to the left downstairs, there's refreshments and whatnot for everybody who's here today for awards. And again, thank you from all of the Hampshire Fish and Game Commission for your service.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Is he taking anything?
Well,
Yeah. Just so that they know where to go.
you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, I'm going to ask for the approval of the September 16th, 2025 commission meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 16th commission meeting minutes.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say the ayes have it now. Moving on to the consent agenda. Following items have been grouped together and noticed as consent agenda items to expedite action on routine matters, which may or not require public discussion. Commission members may remove certain items if further public input or discussion is deemed necessary. Any commissioner asking for an item to be removed? Not seeing any. Start with item 3A. The approval to accept the following donations made to the search and rescue account totaling $1,700, $1,000 from Patricia Dewey, $650 from Nash Camp Owners Association, and $50 from Susan Clement. Item 3B, approval to accept the following donation made to the Wildlife Education Program, totaling $140 from Delta Chapter of Delta Kappa Gamma Society International for $100, the Great North Woods Region Chapter, and the Town of Newmarket, New Hampshire for $40.
I'll make a motion that we approve items 3A and 3B.
Motion's been made for items 3A through 3B.
Second.
Been seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You guys have it. Item 4, the approval to accept a donation of 100-acre fee interest property in the town of Hillsborough from Robert and Linda Thomas Revocable Family Trust, valued at approximately $200,000. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Do I have a second? Pardon? No?
I have my hand up to make a motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Temple. Going into discussion, so Jim, I'm going to have to ask you to explain this.
Okay, very good. Sorry, it takes two people to do the computer stuff. Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners and Executive Director. So Bob and Linda Thomas from Hillsborough, New Hampshire, came to us a few months ago and said we would like to donate our property to Fish and Game. Bob was or is currently an avid outdoorsman. They're both getting up in age and trying to sell their estate. And he really wanted to make sure his land was open for future generations to benefit from. So this land is, again, in Hillsborough, the northern part of Hillsborough. They own 124 acres, outlined in red. And you can see the polygons that would come to Fish and Game versus that would be retained with the house lot, about 24 acres. So out of the 124 acres total, about 100 acres would be donated to Fish and Game. And again, the estimated value is $200,000. You can see where it's located in the town of Hillsborough. Let's see, you're not seeing my cursor, but to the northeast is, that's it right there, the red. To the northeast is our Farrar Marsh Wildlife Management Area in that sort of yellowish orange color. To the south in the pinkish color is the Fox State Forest. And to the north, that pink color is low state forest. And then you got, in the green are other conservation lands nearby. So some pretty decent connectivity. The property is mostly forested, a combination of hemlock, hardwood, pine forest with a few vernal pools. And they did do a forest management project about 3 to 5 years ago. They had a logger come in and do what I would liken it to a small group selection harvest. So 1/4 to 1/2 acre patches scattered throughout their woodland. And we got a good catch of white pine seedlings coming in after the harvest. And the property has a lot of good, nice oak on the property, which equals good acorn producers, which means good wildlife food. And it abuts some of the Hillsborough's town water supply lands and the wetland associated with it. So a portion of this wetland is on the property, most of it is on town of Hillsborough property. And there's a forest road along the western boundary of the 100 acres off of Robbins Road. Robbins Road is a town road. It's a gravel class 5 road. And there's potential parking near the gate there for a few vehicles. And we can look at improving the parking later on. So there you have it. This was reviewed by the Fish and Game Lands team, which reviews all of our potential acquisitions, donated or otherwise, and was also reviewed by Director Sidney.
Okay, any discussion or questions for Jim?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Jim, that's going to be outright ownership, right?
Outright
Is
ownership,
it about?
the wildlife management area.
Is there any restrictions on that property as far as logging?
No,
Sounds like you have some mature wood on there now.
yes.
That being said, does the department look like they're going to have a logging operation anytime soon?
Anytime soon?
Yep.
Probably not. They just did a harvest 3 to 5 years ago. So we'd let that develop, and then we'd come in, I don't know, 10, 15 years thereafter. We have a very regular cycle of doing forest management on our properties. We typically go in on a property every 15 to 20 years, depending on the size of the property. Sometimes if they're bigger, we can go in sooner. But we try to do it in a sustainable manner, trying to diversify habitats on a regular basis.
Because it depends on how the logging job was done.
Yes.
Whether there's any material left harvested.
Oh, yeah,
If
for
you
sure.
select a cut, that might be pretty good
Yeah.
in the near future.
I see, yeah, and we certainly have our forester go check it out. Yeah,
Thank you.
but the other thing I missed, which is also very important, is that this property, the value of that property, we can get it appraised. 200,000 is an estimated value from one of our land agents. We can get it appraised, truly appraised. We can use that value to leverage 3 times the value in federal funds by other conservation lands.
Okay, Jim, could you explain fee interest profit?
We mean we own all the rights. The other in our line of business, you either own it in fee or you hold the conservation easement. So in this case, we're holding the fee, we own all the rights.
Commissioner Cavey, your hand went up. Okay.
Jim, I want to just ask you again, and you did say it, but this particular property in and of itself is readily accessible to the
Yes.
public in terms of being able to park 1 or 2 cars now, but perhaps improve
Correct.
that.
Correct.
And the second half of my question, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Meg?
has this landowner advised you that there are any restrictions that they'd like placed on the property in terms of how it might be utilized by sportsmen and women?
None.
None. Okay.
Commissioner Poole?
I would like to, if it's parliamentary procedure-wise correct, propose an amendment that we table the vote on this until after discussion on FIS 900.
I'll actually second that. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, could you fill us in on FIS 900?
Yeah, it's gonna be coming down the road, Bruce.
So,
Isn't that what, Bruce, that'll be discussed on the legislative
Yeah.
committee before?
So this will come back around today for vote?
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
So to clarify, you're looking to vote on this still today, but after we talk about that?
I guess I reserve my answer till after the discussion. But yes, in an optimistic world, yes, vote on it today after the discussion on that.
Somebody second your motion to table it?
Well, and it's also an amendment to a motion, because we had a motion on the table already to approve it. So it's technically an amendment right now.
Right, we have to vote on the amendment first, on the motion, the first one.
Yeah.
So the amendment is to, I want to make sure I get this clear on you, Commissioner Poole, because I thought you meant next month.
Yeah.
Your amendment is to continue this till after we have the legislative discussion, correct, today? Okay. That is what the amendment did,
Is there a
so.
second?
Yeah, I seconded it.
Thank you.
I seconded it.
Thank you.
All those in favor to table this till after the legislation discussion on the FIS, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One.
Okay, the ayes have it. Your motion to accept this will go at the same time.
Correct, yeah, now it's delayed.
I need a Staples button, that one was easy. Item 5. Approval to accept a donation of 54-acre conservation easement from the town of New London at the Low Plains Natural Area, Route 11, in New London, valued at approximately $325,000. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Poole.
And I'm not sure how to do this without having Jim sit down. He's prepared to do the discussion, so I'll make, my motion is that we don't take action on this until after discussion related to FIS 900 later in this meeting. Whether we delay the entire presentation and discussion until then, I'll leave that up to you.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, those in favor to table this until after the FIS discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any, it will be tabled till after it.
Is there a second to that?
To the
I was the
motion?
second.
To number 5?
I was the second.
Thank you.
He was the second. Who was your, made the motion? AJ made the second. Item 6. The approval to accept the donation of $3,500 from the Ruffed Grouse Society for deposit into small gifts and donations account to support 2 habitat projects. I can guess who's going to make this motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept item number 6.
Second.
Seconded by Poole. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. Is that from the Granite State chapter or is that from National?
Granite State.
I would like, if we could make the record show that it's from the Rough Grouse Society Granite State chapter, because there is a pretty big separation often between the local chapters and the national agency. So, and I'm very proud of our Granite State chapter. So I want to make sure they get credit.
No, I don't think we have to vote on making it that, we just kind of change the
Yeah.
languages. I have a feeling you don't want it there. I suppose I should mention a small grants program project with a focus on grouse and woodcock habitat, and roadwork project to facilitate upcoming forest management of the forest feeders everyone made and north under that item. So we've had a motion and a second. All in favor of item 6 to approve the donation of $3,500 from the New Hampshire Ruffed Grouse Society? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Going down to informational item, financial statement from Kathy LaPonte. It's been placed in front of you. Anybody have any questions for Kathy? Okay, not seeing anything, Kathy. That was short and sweet.
It was.
I thought Chris would have something. Item 2, overview of the Great Bay Stewards and the potential benefits of formalizing them as a nonprofit entity to the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. Before we go, I'm presuming we'll get some form of presentation. Do we have a motion so we can get into discussion?
Make a motion
What is it?
to formalize the relationship between the Great Bay Stewards and the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, now can we get the information on it?
Okay, so, hi everybody, my name is Corey Riley, and I work for the Marine Division, and I'm a manager of a program called the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve. And as stated, what I'm here to do today is to just introduce you to the Great Bay Stewards. They're a local nonprofit that's been supporting our place in our programs for about 30 years. So this is just a chance to learn more about it, hear what they're up to, hear how we've been working with them in the past. So the first thing I'll do is just remind people like who we are and what we do. You all have come down to the Discovery Center in Greenland before, so you may remember pieces of this presentation. But just as a quick reminder, we are part of the Marine Division and the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve. A National Estuarine Research Reserve is a state-federal partnership, so it's a federal program. You are designated, your governor asks for one in your state, and then you become a reserve. And then it is a long-term partnership between the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and a state agency or university. And there are 30 around the country, and we're all place-based programs that were created to understand, protect, and raise awareness about estuaries, where saltwater and freshwater meet. In particular, because of their value to habitat, commercially important fisheries, and the fact that when they were created in the 70s, we were filling a lot of them for things like airports. So the way the program is designed is that everything is done at a local level, and we just have some common programs with other reserves around the country, and we get a large portion of our operating budget every year from NOAA. So here in New Hampshire, our boundary, our place, are a collection of WMAs that are around Great Bay. We partner with the department to do a lot of our work and other coastal agencies in the Seacoast region, and we have a nonprofit partner in the Great Bay Stewards. So just as a reminder of the kinds of work that we do research and monitoring of estuarine habitats, things like oysters, eelgrass beds, salt marshes. We do public K-12 education and teacher education with a huge emphasis on connecting people to the outdoors. Our spring programs focus on natural history. Our fall programs focus on how people are connected to the outdoors through time, including modules on the history of fish and game. We do technical assistance to local community decision makers, which is really similar to sort of the Wildlife Action Plan implementation team, where you're going and you're talking to communities about land conservation, buffer protection, etc. And then because we have WMAs that we work with, we try to sort of use our lands as an area to share information about natural resource management with other landowners, with other agencies in the area. So that might include things like having volunteers come and help us with invasive species removal and native plantings. Or we have a community wildlife garden demonstration plot. It's about 1 acre and it shows people what they can do in their backyard to attract wildlife. So we do things like that on our lands to be like a little bit of a demonstration site. We are, because we're WMAs, we only focus our education mission on a few acres on a few of the parcels that are around Great Bay. So that's just something that we'll probably circle back to a couple times. But our education programs, most of them happen at the Discovery Center that you've been to, and our research happens in the salt marshes on 3 additional WMAs in the area. So just a little bit more about the history of working with motivated citizens in our region. So in the 1970s, Aristotle Onassis was going to build the world's largest oil refinery in Durham, New Hampshire. If this had been successful, there would have been a huge refinery in Durham. There would have been a system that would have had the oil pumped through Seabrook out onto the Isles of Shoals. It would have completely transformed the Seacoast region. There was a lot of support for the proposal at the time, but it was opposed by local politicians, people in the town of Durham and Seabrook and the surrounding towns, and there was a really active citizens group called Save Our Shores. And ultimately, it got defeated in the legislature, and the citizens that were activated through that movement created a nonprofit called the Great Bay Trust, just because they felt like they had a lot of momentum, and they wanted to see if there were ways where they could more permanently protect this region. And that group of citizens was helpful in creating the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, which, as I said, they can only be designated by request of the governor, and that happened in 1989. In about 1996, the reserve came to the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. The Great Bay Trust, after the reserve was designated, became the Great Bay Stewards. So instead of their mission being to protect this region, they wanted to support the programs that happen through the National Estuarine Research Reserve in Great Bay. And so they have been around since 1995, supporting our programs. So this is the mission of the Great Bay Stewards today. So it's the long-term protection and conservation of the Great Bay estuarine system by supporting the education, land protection, research, and stewardship of the Great Bay in partnership with the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve and other like-minded organizations. And I think that one of the things that's really cool to me is about the alignment between what the Great Bay Stewards are all about, what the reserve is all about, and really what the department is all about. You all probably know this like the back of your hand, but the New Hampshire Fish and Game mission is to be a guardian of the fish, wildlife, marine resources, and work in partnership with the public to conserve, manage, and protect the resources and habitats, to inform and educate the public about the resources, and provide the public with opportunities to use and appreciate the resources. So I really feel like the Great Bay Stewards' alignment with Fish and Game's mission is really fantastic. So a little bit about how they actually operate. They've been a registered nonprofit for 30 years. There have been different iterations of an MOA between the Great Bay Stewards and Fish and Game for over 20 years. They have a board that has 10 people on it that meet monthly. Sometimes that number goes up to 12. They have 2 part-time staff, and their fundraising happens through an annual appeal, an art show. They work to secure foundation grants. They do a 5K race, and then they have some meetings. So I just wanted to share a few examples of the type of work that we've been doing in partnership with them over the years. They donate a pretty substantial chunk of cash to the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department every year. This is written into our budget that is approved by the governor, and so they are technically like one of our income sources, our revenue sources. And that funding came from a donor that wanted to give funding to our program, to support our volunteer program in particular. They raise awareness about our programs and Great Bay with citizens, so they do a lot of work just, kind of in the community, about ways that people can protect water and habitat in their own backyard. They help us recruit volunteers, they help us connect to other conservation nonprofits in the region, and they do fund special projects, at the reserve. So a few examples of the type of special projects that they've been involved in is they, for example, throw our volunteers an appreciation dinner every year. They pay for the food, they pay for the decorations, they pay for the gifts that are given out. They sponsor events and workshops by paying for light lunch. So we had an all-day salt marsh research symposium the other day, and they purchase lunch. So they'll do things like that. As I said, they donate funds directly to support our volunteer coordinator through our budget. They donate supplies for our education programs and sometimes supplies for our landscaping around Great Bay. They have an Estuaries Explorer program which pays bus fees for underprivileged schools to come visit us in their field trips. And they have done a tremendous amount of providing private funding to match large federal grants for capital projects. So as a National Estuarine Research Reserve, we have a large block grant that comes from NOAA every year. And we also have an opportunity to compete for construction funds. But the construction funds have to be matched by non-federal dollars. And the Great Bay Stewards raised, they raised $100,000 to help us replace our boardwalk several years ago. And they raised $450,000 to help with the Glen Cove improvements and a facilities planning grant that's associated with our campus. So that means that those federal awards could be matched with private funding rather than touching anything in the Fish and Game Fund. They've also done a tremendous amount of matching grants that have come from Wildlife Heritage Foundation. So I know that now Wildlife Heritage Foundation encourages every applicant to have match. We have always provided match, usually an equal or greater amount of match through the Great Bay Stewards for any project we've applied for, help through the Wildlife Heritage Foundation for. So those are just a couple of examples of the types of projects we've worked with the Great Bay Stewards on over the years and sort of the history of our partnership. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Who commissioners have questions? Commissioner Cagney.
Please forgive me, Corey, but there's a great deal that happens there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I'm following where all the money comes from, because it seems to me like there's a lot of money being spent on a lot of things, but you talk about grants and matching grants and 5K races and that. I mean, where does all the money come from?
So I can talk about my organization and what's in my budget. So my Fish and Game budget is about 70% federal money from NOAA. Every year they just give me a grant. And then there's matching funds that come from New Hampshire Fish and Game. So I'm going to get, actually, it's probably a little bit less than 70 is federal, a little bit less than 30 is Fish and Game funds. And then I have some private funds that are also a part of my approved, state budget. So that's what, and if there's a change to that, you see it because it comes through you to GNC. So if I get a special grant, or if I get a big donation from the stewards, which I did come to you with, the Glen Cove project. So when there's a big chunk of money that comes through my budget, it comes to you first, and then it goes to GNC. So a lot of the fundraisers that they do, like they have a 5K and they have an art show, those are their two big fundraisers. In the MOA that they've had with Fish and Game for a long time, it basically just says that they can use our place to have these fundraisers. So, the Art of Great Bay is, natural landscapes about Great Bay. They have one weekend, they sell art, a portion of it comes back to the Great Bay Stewards. So that they have some fundraisers that they do just like a regular nonprofit, and they also have a membership and an annual appeal, so that's where their money comes from. And their money goes into supporting, like I said, education programs, special projects, Their capital campaign, they did, they went to businesses and knocked on doors, they sent out letters, and that was specific to raise funds for Glen Cove, and before that, specific to raise funds for the boardwalk. Then they write Fish and Game a big check. So that's how that has worked in the past. Does that answer the question?
That helps.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then they did have one large donor who donated a big chunk of money and said, I want this money to go to Fish and Game to help you be able to afford to have a volunteer coordinator. So that was like one donor that had a chunk of money that we have accepted some funds from. But again, that goes into our budget through the state process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you stated that, I think you said 30% comes from private donations. Right?
No, so the 70, this is not an exact science, but the way the reserve system is designed and when you are designated, the state agency that accepts you agrees to pay 30% and match for the 70% that federals come. So it's like a lot of other grants that Fish and Game, I think, has where there's a split. It's often 75 with U.S. Fish and Wildlife funds. With NOAA, it's 70-30. So every year I get 70%, this chunk of money from NOAA, and I have to match that with 30% of funds that come from Fish and Game, typically Fish and Game funds. But sometimes there are other revenue streams that come up with that money. For my regular operating budget, that's my staff, that's operating our buildings, etc. When there's a special project, the stewards have stepped up and taken all of that match on and said,
Let me rephrase it. It's saying raising private funds for
Yeah.
capital projects.
Yep,
Private means outside of
Yes.
Fish and Game.
for capital
My-
projects.
Right, my question is, who are some of these private people that you go to for funds?
Sure, yeah. So we have some really generous donors that live around Great Bay. It's a lot of people that live in the communities around Great Bay and have had their kids come to our school programs, who walk our boardwalk every morning. It's a ton of tiny checks from people who live there. And then they had a couple of donations from banks in the region, or, kind of a couple of the corporations. So they did get some funding from, corporate sponsors for their capital campaign as well. But they got a couple of private donations of $20,000 for Glen Cove.
Okay, my last question would be, you sound like you've been doing very well on raising funds for Great Bay, correct?
Well, not me, but the Great Bay Stewards, yes.
Well, what I'm saying, that this is the group that wants to come part of Fish and Game. They've been doing a great job of raising funds. Where are they going to benefit from becoming a partner with Fish and Game?
I think they've always felt like they were a partner from Fish and Game. They were almost like surprised I had to come. They're like, oh, okay. Well, in their mind, they've had an MOA for a long time. They've been, I'm always talking to them about anything they want to do. I say, you gotta check with me first. I gotta make sure it's, it falls within sort of the Fish and Game umbrella. And sometimes they get a crazy idea and then, no, like we're Fish and Game. Remember, we gotta do it this way. So they've always seen themselves as a partner to this agency. I think part of this is an attempt to make the MOA process smoother and more transparent, both with you and within the agency, and just make sure that we're doing everything kind of as above board as possible.
Is everything going to stay the same if they become a nonprofit entity to the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department? Or what is going to be, it sounds like there's going to be a change here. There's got to be a reason why they want to come in as a partner.
Yeah, so I'm gonna defer to
If I may,
Director Simek.
All right.
So this is coming to us at my request, okay? I actually initiated the fact that we should solidify this in a different manner because having them as a identified partner, it expands our opportunities and our abilities to work with them in different ways. It expands our ability to raise funds for equipment, financial funds themselves, and in-kind support through them, or with them. The MOA that we had in the past was it's not the same as when you have an official partnership as defined in the RSA. And so looking through all the things, they have a lot of good ideas and they have a lot of good reach where they could really help the Great Bay. And this is not in, I just say it up front, this does not compete with the Heritage Foundation, the Wildlife Heritage Foundation, as our official partner for Fish and Game. Their focus is Great Bay, and I thought that if we could clean up our MOU and have them as an official partner, it would be better for us as an agency in the long run, and it would allow them to do some of their other things that they have thought about working with us in partnership. It expands our abilities here.
Mr. Chairman, is there a revised written memorandum of agreement in the draft form that we might be able to see prior to us agreeing on it?
We can work through that. So I put a hold on, basically what we did is the existing MOU that's out there now, we extended it and we put a hold on this, revising a new agreement with them until we had this discussion with you all. So we could work through a draft for you to look at. It will be obviously one that our AGs will be reviewing, and then we can go from there. This is informational today anyway. This is the whole point of this meeting today, for us to be able to answer your questions and get the information you need.
I know it's informational today, but this will probably become action next month.
That would be the intent.
So I would ask that, I like your idea, Commissioner Titone, about seeing a memorandum in place. I'm hesitant about just turning around and saying, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I got a feeling it's like somebody coming up to my door and saying, here's a gift. I'm nervous.
Well, that's the intent of it being informational, so we have.
What, to make me nervous?
No,
Because
Chairman.
you're doing a good job of it.
No, Chairman, to give us an opportunity to, talk about these things and work through them and make sure we're getting you the information you need.
Okay, but I'd like to see the commission get more information before next month. Commissioner Hodgson.
Thank you. So Corey, is this, so the statute that enables a partnership names the foundation as the only, I think the only named partner or official nonprofit partner. So would this relationship be more similar to the relationship we have with an OGT? Or do you envision changing the statute to have Great Bay Stewards another named part? I'm trying to understand the structure.
It's going to require a statute, isn't it?
No, if I may, Chairman. It will not require a statute change. There's actually a provision that allows us to partner with other organizations as well. I'm not, to be upfront, I'm not as familiar with the OGT partnership, so I don't want to speak to whether it's the same or not. But we do have the avenue right through the statutes to offer partnerships with other organizations. Again, the official agency partner is the Heritage Foundation. This is a partnership that's going to facilitate specific needs of the Great Bay area of our Givner, our estuary. That's different than the agency level.
Commissioner DeRosa.
Corey, I'm going to spare you this question and ask the director this.
She'll probably know the answer.
Yeah, first of all, has our funding from NOAA been reduced under current cutbacks?
That's a great question. Not our operational funding. Some of our opportunities to compete for funding were cut.
Okay, and is this an attempt to mitigate that over the next 4 years or so?
It will certainly help. It will certainly help.
I just want to make sure that the commission's aware of the fact that what is an incredible organization that we have and an establishment down there is probably under some potential funding threats over the next 3 to 4 years. And I agree that, let's get more clear language, but insulating ourselves the best we can to continue these programs, I think is very important. So thank you for putting effort on for this to make sure that we survive that.
Commissioner Stoll.
Yeah. Corey, I've always had a lot of questions about, one, are you Fish and Game employees, are you a federal employee?
Oh, yeah.
You get 70% of your funding from the federal government, is that what you said? Is there any strings attached to that money?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So when the reserves were created, it's in law that any use that was on those properties prior to designation can never be changed, you know, by NOAA. They cannot tell you, you can't hunt here anymore, you can't do this here anymore. It is totally locally controlled. It also says that we are always going to be Fish and Game employees. None of us are NOAA employees. NOAA can't tell anybody in Fish and Game who to hire or fire. They can't do anything like that. They have a few required positions. We have to have a research function. We have to have an education function. And the land has to be protected for long-term, so it's suitable for long-term research. So part of it is we have like water quality and like salt marsh vegetation that we've been monitoring for 20 years. So you have to maintain, you know, control of your lands, which is not a problem on WMAs. So those are some of the things that we have to do, the strengths. We have to have an education program, we have to do some research and monitoring, and we have to control our lands. We have some administrative things, like I have to produce a management plan every 5 years, they evaluate my program every couple of years. And in the year-to-year grants, you know, there are a few strings in the grants themselves. Like one of them is that I'm supposed to go to the meeting with the other reserves around the country every year, and that's in my grant, for example. So there's a couple of strings like that around programmatic things that come with the 70% funding, but it really was designed to have a lot of local control. Like we get to decide what to study. We get to decide how our education program is run, and whether it's for young children, older children. We have to do one teacher training workshop a year. So it's the federal mandates are very light for the amount of money that is provided. And they, like I said, the program was designed to be about local relevance, in particular because at that time in the 70s, there were a lot of other large federal land protection programs that got a lot of, there was a lot of kickback about. And so they designed this one so that it didn't feel like a federal program. It was giving states funds to protect the resources that matter to them. That's why the governor has to ask for it and says, this is where I want it. So it was kind of designed to be like, lean into what the state thought was relevant and what the state wanted.
So you are what's classified as a research reserve, correct?
We are a research reserve. So nationally, we are an estuarine research reserve, and that's been true in the state. We've been in Fish and Game as a National Estuarine Research Reserve since 1996, but we've always been Fish and Game employees. I think before it was at Fish and Game, it was at OEP, but I'm not exactly sure about that history. But yeah, so that's kind of how it's been. Now, you know, we even have an accounting unit called Estuarine Reserve, you know, like within the budget. So,
So who, one more question.
Sure.
Who picks what you're going to research? Is it the Fish and Game Department or is it the federal government?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So basically, NOAA wants us to look at estuarine habitats, right? And, you know, kind of like water quality, habitat, that type of thing, and they give us a lot of leeway on what to decide. So a lot of that is decided in our program in partnership with Fish and Game, but also all of the other coastal people. In like, so with DES, we talk to them, I talk to them 3 times a week, you know, with the EP, the UNH. So with a lot of different partners that are in that area, and the point of research reserves is to inform the way people manage the coast. So all of our research is supposed to be very applied. So we have like 3 or 4 ways each year where we send out surveys to people, we get meetings together to say what are your needs this year in this area related to managing water quality, managing eelgrass or oysters, what are you seeing in trends, how can we help? So that's kind of how we come up with our research agenda.
Thank you.
I got one more, because the more you guys are asking, a lot of it's coming from federal money, correct?
65, I'm gonna say, percent of my budget. Mhm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, with all the, well, I'm gonna try and really be politically correct here, but I know it's not gonna happen. With all the stuff that's going on right now within the federal government, the federal shutdown,
Yep.
federal funding stopping and all that, if 2 years from now, the federal funding stops,
Yep.
is that now gonna become an expense to Fish and Game?
Yeah, that's a good question too, and I'll say that, you know, I was worried this year, and so I put some scenarios to the director and just said, here are my back pocket scenarios in case there's no federal money. I do have a couple external grants that could get us by without having to let any full-time employees go for a couple of years. So I'm doing that scenario planning like continually because it is an unstable federal funding landscape right now. And the answer is if it turned off tomorrow, we would have to sit down and figure it out. There is like I said, the only positions that are required to be a National Estuarine Research Reserve there's 3 positions that are required: research, education, and manager. And I've been around the system, the reserve system, for a long time, and there are a lot of creative ways for an agency to absorb those titles. And the important thing is that we have the places already because it's a WMA. You know what I mean? So there's a lot about it that I'm pretty confident we could figure out. And it's also always, this has never happened before. We've never, ever not gotten federal funding since 1978. So it could happen, and if it does happen, it's going to be a brand new world for all of us.
Right,
And
well,
we're not the only program in Fish and Game that's going to be in like a brand new world if federal funding turns off. So it's like we will have to figure this out together, right?
But what I'm concerned about here is the fact that if federal funding were to slow down, and this group isn't getting as much as what they expected, are we going to be coming to New Hampshire Fish and Game to expect Fish and Game to make up the difference, which could come from the sportsmen, from their licenses, from the North Country that has really nothing to do with it over there by land.
So to be clear, this is New Hampshire Fish and Game.
Yeah.
So, and yes, if the
Well, if it's New Hampshire Fish and Game, why are we saying we're bringing a group in to be part of Fish and Game?
to help offset the potential funding losses and to actually expand our reach to gain more financial security and equipment through a different angle. That's why we would want to bring
It's
them
about
in as a partner.
insulating ourselves long-term, which was the question that I was asking, is this doomsday scenario? And I would hope that this commission would be very interested in protecting this outfit. What we do there is incredible for, kids. I mean, if we're going to start there, I mean, not only that, we're talking about the habitat involved in there for migratory birds, for ducks. I mean, this is questionably our state's biggest asset. And yeah, I think, Ray, you're right to ask that question, what happens? But I think right now, this is what we're doing. We're planning for that what if, and we should do our best to insulate ourselves so that as much of this program can survive.
And I'll be perfectly clear, I'm not against what you're doing over there.
Yeah, no, these are great questions.
I'm looking at the overall picture here
Yeah.
of not this month, not next month,
Yeah.
3 years from now, maybe?
Well, I can
How
tell
much
you,
is this,
right, I can tell you a couple things that I'm doing personally. So I'm working on scenarios that I've shared with the director and I shared with Cherie before she retired, just to think about the next couple of years. We are also talking as a group, like the National Estuarine Research Reserve managers as a group with NOAA, about how do we interpret the act, like our legislation, in a way where we can really scale our programs way down and still get whatever money they have. So we are having that conversation at the national level, like what counts really as an education program, what counts, so that we know like how we can scale. So we're trying to be as prepared as we can for any shifts in funding, both on the federal side, what would work, and part of that really is a question for all of you about at some point I'm gonna come to the director, to the department and say, what pieces of my program do you want me to fight hardest to keep? And that will be a collective decision that we make when the time comes.
And I understand federal funding, we get it in all different areas of Fish and Game, not just that area. We're getting it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just cautious.
Oh, I don't think it's a good time.
I'm cautious and suspicious.
In discussion with the director, the Resources and Infrastructure Committee will be going down to Great Bay this coming month before our next meeting, and having some discussions down there about the facility, and some of these things may come up, and some of us may be able to also help with some details and answers at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm going to ask when your committee does that, please inform the whole commission date and time.
We shall.
Right, can
Any more questions, Commissioner
I-
Cave?
One question, and
Sure.
I hope it doesn't confuse, I'm hoping it will enlighten. But at the federal level, through NOAA,
Yep.
is there anything in writing, I'm sure there is, okay, that's an outline, okay, that dictates what your relationship or the relationship should be between New Hampshire Fish and Game and the entity that you're responsible for down there, with a volunteer organization like the Stewards Program? I mean, you did say that NOAA has kind of expectations that they expect. I mean, is that outlined in any written form?
Yes, I can share the act and the regulations, if you'd like, with the commission.
That would be great.
Yeah, and as far as, so there are 30 reserves and 20 of them have local friends groups. There's not language from NOAA mandating that. It's just that there are a lot of people who like these places and have had citizen support. So the nice thing about that is there are a lot of different models and ways to do it and ways other organizations have worked with their state agencies. So, so we're not the only one that has this, but it's not required or anything like that.
Okay, any more questions?
Quick.
Okay.
Corey, could you circulate the MOA?
Sure.
And then perhaps, Director, could you circulate the statute that authorizes or enables these partnerships? We can look at.
Yes, and if there's any additional information, just, let us know. We're happy to provide it.
I'd recommend anything you can give this commission before next month will be helpful.
Okay, great. Oops.
Do I need to withdraw my motion if this is informational?
What's your motion?
We made a motion at the beginning
To
approve
formalize the
this.
relationship between the stewards and the Fish and Game Department?
You're correct, this is an informational item only, yes.
So I'd like to withdraw my motion.
That was my mistake for allowing it, so yes, withdraw it.
Okay. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, another for information item, overview of inland fisheries proposed rule changes.
Good afternoon. Give us just a second while we get into the presentation. All right, so it is on the screen behind you. Technical problem solved. This is the same presentation that that I and I think Diane Timmons maybe a little bit, but also John Byer in our New Hampton office gave at the August 28th, I think it was, public hearing. And I have one thing to add to it. Hopefully I'll remember. It's a pretty simple thing though. So a couple things. We had originally a proposal to do to make bass tournaments have to be on water bodies greater than 500 acres. We just pulled that back, took that off there. So as the big visual, we got rid of it. I just want to make that real clear. So we have some analysis going on just to see what makes sense in terms of size of water bodies. To be honest with you, we haven't done any of that since August when we pulled that part out of the original rulemaking package. We added there's two definitions. We added a new one called catch, measure, and release tournament. This is basically just a way to make sure that we try to make it easier for the tournament organizers and also the people in the tournament. And a catch, measure, release tournament is basically that. If you're out on the water, you catch, measure, you take a photo of it. And these things are becoming more popular. So we wanted to make that easier on the tournament folks. So we added that. Oh yeah, not definition yet. So a really important part of the bass, but all of the fishing tournaments is we're moving away from paper to basically a 100% online system for the application and also an online system for payment. So we have the first part of that done, the payment part's gonna be done pretty soon too. Again, the intent here is to make it easier for tournament organizers just to do the application. They get, within a few days, we still have to put eyes on it, but within a few days, they will know if their location, so their water body and their date is available to them. And then we ask them to pay. This is the thing that's not in here, but I wanted to make sure. We originally said we'd like that payment to happen in 5 days, and we might change that to something like 10 days. But the idea here is right now for bass tournaments, they have 30 days to pay. If we kept doing that, even though we're getting rid of the lottery system and going to this online application system that's a first come, first serve, which is what most states do for fishing tournaments. If we had that 30 days, it basically locks up that location and that date for 30 days. And I think no one wants anyone, doing that, whether they want to do it on purpose or they forget, or worse, if someone did it maliciously, just to try to keep the tournament off a water body or something. So these are some of the things that we're thinking and considering. So because it's all be very easy to pay online, we put it to 5 days, but again, we understand through the Joint Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, the 5 days might not be acceptable to that committee. So we're thinking it'd be something longer than that, but we still don't want it really to be 30. Again, we're a little worried to get, someone would accidentally, or hopefully not maliciously, lock up a water body. The whole reason to do this online is to make it more efficient for the tournament organizers and the tournament participants. Quite frankly, it also makes it more efficient for the department staff. Vicki Leonard, who has done this for a long time, just to rectify that situation for them.
Yeah, and conversely, a place like Sunapee that we recently visited, it has very limited access to it. It may not have much of an effect that you're actually looking for.
Yeah.
So.
And so one of the things is too, we want to make things simple. We don't want to mess stuff up, but we also want to make things simple for our constituents if we can. And what this would do actually, it would make that the length limit for lake trout be 15 inches, which is the same as it is for landlocked salmon, which is the same as it is for rainbow trout in these water bodies. So we're trying to, it's nice that it simplifies it, but also we think it's going to meet our management goal of thinning out the herd a little bit, basically. A lot of the stuff that's on here, I think I just kind of went through, so I think I'm going to go past this for now. But we definitely have, from our data set, it looks like we have a lot of really small lake trout that aren't even getting to that 18-inch harvest size that we want people to be able to do that. I mentioned earlier, we stock landlocked salmon and rainbow trout, but we don't stock lake trout. So with rainbows, with salmon, if we want to adjust some things a little bit, which we do all the time, every single year, John Byer gets data on salmon populations in a number of the lakes, and then adjust how many we're going to, and also with our forage fish survey work, and then he can adjust the numbers of salmon that are stocked the next year. We know a lot of harvest for lake trout happens. That window is getting smaller. So again, we want to try to help it do something to increase that harvest. We have spiny water fleet in 2 of our water bodies now, one at Pisaki and Newfound. This year in Newfound was the first year they were found. This is a little crustacean that's in the water column, and it can even though it's small, it directly competes for food with things like rainbow smelt and other small fish. So we're a little bit worried that, we have, and they themselves don't get eaten as much by fish as, well, they're spiny. They have this long spine thing, and so it's hard for fish to eat them. And so because they have reduced mortality themselves, we're a little worried they're going to take up some of those resources for baby fish and stuff like that. So again, I want to thin out the herd a little bit. I have to leave with a big photo.
And could you go back to the slide on the kids fishing derbies?
That's a beast.
I'd like it explained why it went from shall to may.
I'll defer to the director, I think.
Whoever wants to answer.
You just stated it in your presentation.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was to provide flexibility if we have issues with hatchery production.
My question on the difference between shall and may is, if I say shall, I will. May means good luck, I may not do it. That's very concerning to me, that when it comes to these derbies, that we may not do it. I was just looking for a form that I had, that on one of the sheets, and I'm trying to relocate it, is because on one of the, I think it was in the legislative rules, and it said we were doing away with Fish and Game getting involved in derbies.
So right now, we're mandated by law to match 50-50 regardless of any of our circumstances.
Mandated
which-
by rule.
By
By rule,
Yeah,
sorry.
by
I
rule.
said law, by rule, sorry.
Yeah.
So by rule, and what we'd like to do is have May, because of the circumstances with the hatchery, we had to go through a bunch of conditions to be able to not match fish this year and next year. And so we just, if the circumstance comes about that we're matching, that we're renovating another one of our facilities, we want to have it as a May. This isn't saying that we're not having derbies. This is saying that if circumstances arise, we don't necessarily have to match 50-50. It's our discretion.
My thing is messing with the kids' derbies. I've had more complaints on that since it was first mentioned. I've gone out and spoken to numerous sportsmen on this. And what they turn around and say, I'd rather see, they understand that this year we had issues with hatcheries. They get it, they understand it. But I'm looking for further down the road here. Because what I have had the sportsmen say to me is, I would rather have, instead of a 4 trout limit, let's move it to 3, take those fish and use it for the derbies. And the reason being is because on the derbies, these little kids are the future. And I am totally against changing anything on the derbies for the kids. Totally against it. This, to me, is, I shall meet you for lunch at Friday at 12 o'clock. That means I'm gonna be there. If I say to you, I may do it, that doesn't mean I'm gonna be there. That makes me suspicious.
That little,
I'm just asking, I'm just stating,
Yeah, and I understand that, but I would also say that given the circumstances with Powder Mill Hatchery, we are not returning to full production at Powder Mill Hatchery in any time
Understand
soon.
that.
So we are working through internally how we're going to do these derbies, because Powder Mill spent every Friday throughout the stocking year doing kids' derbies. It is a tremendous amount of their capacity that we no longer have. And so we are internally working through how we're going to do that. And so the opportunity of May enables us to have that flexibility to work through those details, because those fish are going to be coming from the other 5 facilities elsewhere.
I understand that, Diane. The sportsmen understand it also. I do not like when wording goes from shall to may. Because what happens is now you change an FIS and it says may, that FIS is in place forever until it gets changed back. And when you say may, that doesn't mean anything's going to happen. I've seen too many times in this state, we may do this. That means it's not going to happen. I'm against that change. Okay? Commissioner DeRosa.
Not to sound like the capitalist in the room, which is probably a surprise coming out of my mouth, but we have to, protect out-of-state license purchases, other things that are critical to this organization function. And I agree that, it's important that we protect future generations. And I think there's both creative ways that those can be overcome, whether it's through nonprofits, private money, and whatnot. And I agree that there are certainly people in this state, especially people that live in this state where it is our resource, that agree with your sentiment. But there's a lot of out-of-state people or people that aren't necessarily as interested as folks like us who volunteer to do something like this. So my general concern is that protecting our license sales is critical, and I also have faith in our department. I don't think Diane's going out there and saying, like, I want to, you know, mess over the little kids. I'm trying to clean up my language a bit here. So point being, like, this flexibility, like, is important for us to, again, mitigate a very difficult circumstance over the next few years, and that's what this change is. And I do think that, I agree, in 3 years, 4 years, that should go back to shall. And I don't, this commission does not have a short memory. It has a very long memory. It remembers things that commissioners weren't even on here for somehow. So point being, for now, I think that this has to exist, because if not, we're tying our department's hands behind its back to be able to function properly, to make it through this next few very awkward years that have been very unfortunate. You know, we can't please everybody, and that's going to happen, and it is unfortunate.
I disagree that we're tying the hands, and I don't accept that comment.
I would also add that I think it's really important that this only has to do with kids' derbies. We also have several kids' water bodies that we stock on an annual basis, regardless of derbies, and those are still on the schedule.
I'm just letting you know, everybody I've talked to, not happy. All the way to Senator Waters. Anybody else have any questions for Diane? Commissioner Cavney.
I get it. Just so you know, I get it. Have I had some phone calls? Yeah. And as you've heard me say before, commissioners get phone calls that people that work in this building never get, okay? So, believe it or not, we hear about it. So my question is, understanding we have a hatchery issue right now, okay? And understanding that when the public sees that, it's painful and it angers them. Is there any way to kind of find some middle ground and rewrite the FIS with an accelerated termination? In other words, AJ just said it. 3 or 4 years, you know, we got to deal with this. Can we amend it so that in 2 years, we have to revisit this and we take up the discussion again? The sportsmen are not going to be happy, okay, but we can just continue with the promise, just like the promise that was made this year when there just weren't a lot of fish, or as many fish as the public wanted to have. So I'm asking that question because I'm not certain personally on that process. Can we write an FIS that's accelerated?
I would add one thing before I say that, and then I'll have Marty answer that. She knows the program better than I do. But I think it's important to note, this is no different than our aerial program, which we did not do last year. We eliminated. We are instating that for next year. We have already made process. So the 3 to 4 year visit, no, we are visiting this right now. Like, we are talking about ways to figure this out, and this ruling is so that we can operate under our rules appropriately over the next 1.5 years, 2 years max, where we're going to be able to figure out what our operation is at our new facilities and how that's going to change our other 5 facilities that we're working through to be able to make this happen. There's a lot of logistics that goes into derbies, and yes, we receive phone calls also. I have been talking to a lot of folks about it.
And I just wanted to say, for the process, not the substance, though laws, statutes can have a future date, rules have to be more specific. So we couldn't have a future date for a rule to take effect. Like you were saying.
Next.
So, thank you, Marty. I was going to mention that, and thank you, Diane, for mentioning the other pieces about the fish ponds. But I also want to mention that we've had this conversation in August, and since then, these rules had already gone through public process. I don't know that that was clear in the presentation, but these have gone through the public process, and we're ready to implement them. In fact, it's being postponed because I think of the five-day component, but they've gone through all the vetting. The one thing I think that is being missed here is, I understand your concern, Chairman. The one thing though I think is being missed is the fact that if we say may, it allows us the flexibility to consider alternative options for kid engagement in fishing. By having shall, we are forced to obviously commit these things. Now, I will say firsthand, this past year, we had a misstep. We didn't get the information out soon enough to you guys, to the public. I'll take ownership for that. It came out much too late for us to try to find alternative approaches to what happened this past year. And that's why I made the statement, I made the decision that we would do it for the 2-year period, so that it would offer us time to figure out some alternatives during this crunch. And in saying may, that will allow us some flexibility to consider how we can best serve kids and still serve the fish ponds and still meet our license holders who are paying. I really encourage you to rethink the fact that may it means we aren't going to be doing anything. I take offense to that, to be honest with you. As the director of this organization, I don't look at may as, well, we just won't do anything. I look at it as our opportunities to reset and think about the times we are facing right now with limited funding, continual changes in the environment, and continual pressure, and the desire to encourage people to hunt, fish, trap, recreate, bird watch, everything. Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sepulveda.
Diane, you mentioned the words, kids water bodies.
Yes.
I used to have the Cobra Patrol. There was a kid's water body in there called Kid Brook. Kevin Jordan coming along and an adult fishing in this Kid Brook could not do anything about an adult fishing in the Kid Brook. These kids' facilities, Brook, Pond, take the pond in Pittsburgh. Every time the truck goes by that pond, fish goes in it. Mike Kiwanis Fishing Derby in Colbrook now has to buy all of their fish, no 50-50. Well, they want to know why they have to buy their fish, but Pittsburgh people don't have to buy their fish.
So there was a period of time that kids, I'm calling them kids, but you're absolutely correct. Anybody over 16 can fish any water body that is public, period. So because the water bodies are public, they can fish those and we stock them. The Kiwanis Pond is private, as far as I know. That's not even on my brain. So as far as remembering sites on the stocking records, but because it's private, it is not public, and so it would be, we are not mandated to stock that for the public, because the public doesn't go there.
The pond is open to everybody fishing after, all kids after the derby is over. But I'm talking, the main reason I mention that is numbers.
Yeah.
If you haven't got the numbers to do kids derbies, then maybe some of these places that every time the truck goes by, it throws water in, fish in, and the wardens can't do a thing about it. 9 times out of 10, or maybe 10 times out of 10, there's not even a town ordinance against it, as far as an adult fishing those water bodies. So, I mean, you're talking numbers is a problem here with stocking kids derbies.
Yeah, and I will tell you, we have been reining in stocking amazingly in large numbers, I will say. So by the use of the stocking iPads, we've been able to, in a huge way, limit those drive-by stocking events. So in an effort to be fair amongst the users. So we have reined a lot of that in. So.
Well, I certainly hope that the department has heard from the commission our feelings on these. And I agree with the chairman and with Marty that this FIS is gonna be there for a while. You can go in and probably try to change it later and pull it out.
You can
But-
change them annually.
Right, yeah. But hopefully you've heard our feelings on that. I know I raised the issue a long time ago. I'm guilty of bringing this issue to light, but I firmly believe that is our future. Thank you.
I have had some conversations with organizers of derbies this summer, a number of them. And I think the director's point, they now have a better understanding of the process, the hatchery process over the next 4 to 5 years. And I think with that information getting to them sooner, it will allow them, and they were able to kind of scramble this year and get some additional private resources to help purchase the other fish. And I think having this information now going into next year and understanding about what's happening in New Hampton and the other hatcheries around the state, and may take a little bit of burden off some of those tournaments for the kids to be able to seek out some other sources and get some fish. And I do think by having May in there, it does give you the ability, maybe it's not 50, maybe it's 25% of the fish, or we can get you something to help offset what those other derbies are doing privately.
Okay, is there anybody else that has not had a chance to speak? Mr. Temple.
Thank you. I had a little bigger overreaching concern. I wanted to just get into the minutes. We know that this year we had a tough time because of our hatchery constraints, and next year maybe the same. But going forward in the future, I know that we had all of our hatcheries reviewed by an independent firm, and we're going to have additional stuff, CIP work, change in rules and regulations of DES coming down the pipeline in the future. And so if we are committed by the word shall, and for the next 10 years, the best we can do is may, I'm real anxious to see what the planning process might be for the department with respect to other hatcheries potentially closing. Hopefully not, but let's face it, they may. And how we address production at those hatcheries through the 5 or 6 reports that we got 18 months ago. Okay.
Okay, anybody that's not had a chance to speak?
I don't think I have actually.
The other thing we'd be asking for is when this discussion is done, we're taking a break.
I just wanted to add one quick moment and that one quick other thing, and that is this year, I did get positive feedback from some of the folks that they were able, the Derby directors were able to actually charge a fee. And so there were folks that I spoke with that were able to compensate for that fish, for the fish purchase, to be able to put them in. When we match those fish, they cannot charge a fee. So that's another thing to note, that we were able to get that word out to folks that they were able to do that because we weren't matching, so they were able to do that, and a lot of folks did do it, and they were happy that we gave them that opportunity to do that.
One last shot here, Mr.
Yeah, it's actually from the end of the presentation. I had a question before we got into this, and it was on your comment about lake trout and us changing the limit size on the trout to hopefully produce larger lake trout. Forgive me for throwing a grenade here, but I don't really understand fish like I understand birds or mammals. If we put less rainbow trout or salmon in those lakes, will those lake trout now grow? Because they're not competing for food? I don't know, are these things competing against?
So lake trout are really slow growing fish, like really slow growing, like 20 years they may grow an inch. And so they're really, those fish that are in there are really old, so they don't adjust so much to that annual stocking changes as much as stocked trout do, or salmon for that matter. So the idea of reducing it to that 15 inches is so that folks can keep 15-inch fish, 16, 17, 18.
Well, I guess my
etc.
question is, if you stocked less non-native fish, do those lake trout now grow bigger? That's my question. Like, are they competing for food? That's my question.
So the biggest issue is the spiny water flea and the smelt. And so yes, there's definitely competition. We are reducing those numbers, but we're also simultaneously promoting the ability to harvest those sort of bottleneck size range from 15 to 18 that we're seeing so many of in our net catches. And so they're just not getting to that bigger size because they switch over to change in food source that just isn't there.
So we are reducing some of those stocking.
Absolutely. We went from 20,000 rainbows to 5,000.
Awesome.
So,
That's my
yeah,
question.
big number of reductions, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Diane. I know there's, see a few people kind of squirming back there. Let's take a 10-minute break. Okay, we're back in order, I think. Are you on?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Item 4, as an informational item, the overview of the request to expend up to $45,000 from the Fisheries Habitat account to purchase a replacement truck for fish habitat work. Diane.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Nope.
It's on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, Commission. I wanted to make this informational item. I wanted to make this presentation so we could give you information on the need as to why we are coming forward with this first-time request. So the Fish Habitat account has 4 basic categories of work that it does work underneath. One of the categories is data collection. We hire 6 seasonals every summer to carry out brook trout and culvert surveys. We are working behind the scenes to look at prioritization of various projects using that data. We also do work conducting restoration efforts, so working with various partners, in-state, out-of-state, federal, etc., to help fund and support those projects. And some of those include dam removal, culvert replacement, strategic wood additions, some of which are what was approved in the August meeting, during the August meeting. Some other things we do are land protection, so conservation easements, riparian buffers, all of which provide good habitat support for brook trout preservation. A lot of times in these locations, the target species is eastern brook trout, so our native fish. And also we do technical assistance, and so that's advice to partners. We share data with Department of Environmental Services. All of their aquatic resource mitigation mapper has all of our data that we collect every summer that gets updated, and the training for the culvert assessments is conducted through their partnership as well. So just as a note, it is the fish habitat fee does have requirements on what it can be spent, and some of that includes labor and materials, and those materials we have included in the past are our electrofishing equipment, as well as nets and various other things that we've utilized for habitat. This will be the first time that we're purchasing a vehicle. Just to bring it home, the Wildlife Division got approval for a mini excavator in their last round, and so Fisheries has never moved forward with this, so we're making an effort to ask for this vehicle expense because of the fact that our Fisheries Habitat program has no dedicated trucks under it, and so we have always used fleet vehicles. And we have 2 full-time employees that we pay out of that, as well as the 6 temporaries. And then we also have regional staff that contribute to this program as well. So we actually support 11 staff members that contribute to this habitat program and have no designated truck. So other program leaders do have assigned trucks in the regional offices. And we have availability problem here in Concord where the actual program leader is housed. And that is, we have shared vehicles here in Concord. We have 2 for fisheries and 5 folks that are here alone. And then in our other offices, again, other regional staff that assist. And so of the trucks available for the program, they're all shared, and that would be 5 trucks for the 11 staff members. The unfortunate part, this 2025 season, I had 2 trucks that failed inspection because they had maintenance issues and got pulled off the road. So one was here in headquarters, huge problem. Like I said, we only have 2 trucks in fisheries for all of our shared programs here. So one of those got pulled off the road. It was a 1999 that got hit by lightning. And the other one is up in Region 1, our cold water program truck. And that's a 2012, and it actually broke down on 93 while supporting habitat work. So our mechanic had to go get them and bring them back to Lancaster, and then bring the truck back to Concord, and it got pulled. We are not repairing that, it's beyond repair. So we did order one last fiscal year, and it has not come to service here at the headquarters yet. So unfortunately, we are still waiting for that truck. It was ordered in the spring. Whoops, I'm hitting a period. So basically that leaves 3 available trucks to do our habitat work statewide. And yes, work was impacted. We were trying to share trucks with wildlife. When wildlife was not using those, it was fine. When wildlife is using theirs, which is 99.9% of the summer, we had no truck. And so the work didn't get done. So we've looked into various options. Of course, we have the fleet account. This year's budget, unfortunately, has enough money in it to be able to purchase 1 truck across the entire agency, and that's already been spent. And so we have looked into lease and renting in the past, and unfortunately, because this program is statewide, it would result in very high mileage, and the cost would be prohibitive. So the other thing is we keep our trucks for a very long time. As you can see, our 1999 Gem, though because we keep them for so long, again, a leasing program would just be prohibitive. So, and then of course the other option is the program accounts, which, for example, wildlife uses its big game account and its research accounts to be able to buy trucks for various programs. So we believe that this is our only option at this point. So we are looking at our fish habitat account balance as of yesterday was $440,763. And that includes the expenditures that were approved during the June meeting of $300,000. And then the vehicle quote that we got was $44,590. Leaving us a remaining balance of $396 and some change. And here is our quote, just to show we do have, this is a state vendor that we utilize quite a bit. We're looking at the crew cab model because of the fact, like I said, we do have 6 seasonals that we hire every summer. And it is nice to be able to have the space to actually utilize 1 truck instead of trying to do 2. To the various sites if it is a larger site. So with that, I'll take any questions.
I've got one.
Sure.
How many bids did you get for the truck?
So state agencies, all state contracts, you don't do a bid. They already do the bidding system. So these Central Dodge, McFarland, Ford, and Alliance for our larger trucks are our state vendors. And so Central is a state vendor, so they've already done the bidding system through purchasing and procurement.
By the way, congratulations on the 4 hatchery trucks.
Thank you. Yeah. Unfortunately, none of those
Anybody
count
else
for
have any
this.
questions? Mr. Temple?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Diane, I'm sure it's a typo, but when on page 4, we're looking at a Ram 1500.
Oh, sorry.
Is it a 1500 or a 2500?
It's a 15, my mistake. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a 2500, it's 1500.
15.
So it's just a housekeeping thing. As a follow-up to that, how in the world do we end up running a truck that's 26 years old?
I have a dump truck that's a 1991 in Berlin, New Hampshire that I cannot replace right now because it's over $200,000 and that far surpasses our budget, so that's why.
No, say that again.
So we can only, so in fisheries, I do not have the capacity to purchase anything under my other programs. This is the only program that has funding allocated for that. So we always purchase our vehicles through the fleet account. And the fleet account is based on our approved budget through the governor's office. And so, for example, this year we can buy one truck through the entire agency.
Yeah.
That's why.
Okay, so I understand that philosophy. Okay, but my experience in public works is these pickup trucks, after about 10 years, they need to go. They start to cost more than they're worth. Okay, we know that. And there's no mystery about it. You had another one go down that is 13 years old. So I guess, Director, I'm hoping as we go forward in the future that there's some sort of equipment replacement, including trucks. If you need to, you need to, that we can deal with this situation instead of coming back halfway through the year and say, geez, I had 2 trucks dry, I gotta go buy one. It makes us look like we don't have a plan to begin with. And I hope we have a plan, or we'll have a plan going forward in the future. We had this happen with hatcheries. We went years and years and years and years without doing a hatchery. And some big law foundation had to bring us to court to get us to do something. And I just think from a management perspective, and I'm not talking just the fish account. I'm talking in general terms across fishing games fleet. Because I bet my 10 fingers, 9 fingers, that there's a bunch of others out there too that we don't have a capital replacement program on. Thank you.
Commissioner Stoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move this from informational to action and also make a motion at this time to approve the purchase of that pickup.
I'll second that.
For the record, it was an informational item, just throwing that out there.
We have the ability to move it up in action.
Yep.
You did this.
I did a good job.
Yeah.
You covered most of the questions I would have had. You do know the truck coming out of that account has to be used specifically for this. I
Yes.
would expect it to be out plowing snow, picking up trash, and running for people.
Right.
We have a motion to move it from informational to action. Do I have a second? Discussion on that. Any discussion?
The only discussion I'd offer is I believe the motion was to approve not only to move it to an action item, but to approve the purchase.
He's probably not going to allow that one.
We're first moving it to action. Okay? Don't push me too hard right now. Diane knows what I'm talking about. All right, so all those in favor to move it from informational to action, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll go say yes on this one, this time. You know my feelings on that.
Mr. Chairman? I move to approve the purchase of that pickup up to $45,000.
I'll second it.
Price is saying 45.5, 45.5. But we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to allow the purchase of a 2026 Ram 1500 crew cab for $44,590. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not having any, you've got a truck.
Thank you very much.
Boy, am I going against you.
You'll be okay.
No, I won't be. I'm not gonna be okay. Item 5, information only, Martha Mosley. Various FISs here.
Please, I'll just kind of go over.
Yeah,
What
we'll
I-
do the whole shebang.
Okey dokey. Okey dokey.
No,
No, we can't do the whole shebang.
you've got a list here of 7. Are you gonna say skip this and put it under legislative committee?
If you would like.
Well, that just simply makes it, I mean, legislative committee's next, so you can
Right.
skip this and just do it anyways.
Not too far off.
Keep in mind that the legislative committee are coming after, going back on 2 more items.
Right. Yeah.
Before we continue. So, I will take item 5 and move it to under legislative committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did meet this morning, prior to the commission meeting. It was somewhat half-baked, advertised as a get-together, a organizational meeting of the committee. We get into rules and got into rules, and then we got into rules, and then some more rules. And I'm gonna let Marty,
Whoever I am.
run with it, because she'll take the first part, which is under action item number 5, and roll it right into
Informational only.
informational item on 5 to the rules. Marty,
Okay,
take it away.
thank you, Commissioner
Glasses,
Stahl.
What's
I
that?
love you
I
some
think you need
rules.
glasses too.
What?
I think you need glasses also,
Why is that?
because it's informational item, not action on it.
Informational item.
Okay, good, because I got some information to give you. And I'll start with the FIS 313 wanton waste prohibited rules. These were presented to the commission in August. The hearing, the department had the hearing September 11th. These rules were in front of JLCAR last Friday, where they were approved, and we adopted them yesterday to take effect tomorrow. Those were very popular rules. Diane and McGee already did the 400 and 500 fishery rules, so those have already been presented.
Yep.
The other one is the FIS 1300 guides licensing. These also were presented to the commission in August. The department had the hearing on September 11th. These rules were at JLCAR last Friday, where they were approved. We adopted them yesterday, and they will take effect tomorrow. I think it's still on the agenda, the FIS 800 rules. I sent you out in the email that I sent on Friday. They are not ready for presentation yet. It's a pretty lengthy rule set. Not a lot of changes being proposed, but a lot of formatting corrections and things like striking out the description of forms and instead including the link to the form on our website. But it's very tedious and time consuming. So those should be here next month. Then Dan can, or whoever's here from Wildlife can do the FIS 301.03 and FIS 301.06, the deer tags for WMU's L&M in the bear season. This is an initial proposal today, informational item for approval next month.
Yep, thank you, Dan Berger, I'm Chief of the Wildlife Division. So with FIS 301.031, this is the special unit L antlerless permits. So we had discussed this change when we did our biennial season setting. Really all this is doing is changing the issuance of those unit L tags from a lottery to a first come, first served system. We have not, the last few years, we have not actually been able to issue all the permits that have been made available. As we've increased the number of permits available to hunters, certain years we actually don't get enough applications into the lottery to issue all the permits. Other years we've had enough applications for the lottery to fill all the permits, but people don't actually buy their permit. We set a date where permits have to be purchased by if you were successful in the lottery, so that to make sure that people were actually purchasing and they weren't just sitting on them. So we've had a few years where we have not been able to issue additional permits that were left over. There's currently no mechanism to do that. So because the supply kind of outweighs the demand at this point, we're looking to just make it first come, first serve. It would be the same way we issue Unit M permits. This creates more opportunity for hunters. It makes sure that we get all these permits issued, and it's less work for staff as well. So that's the change there. FIS 30106 is a pretty simple change. In 2024, there was an RSA change that allowed us to set a fee for bear registration stations to charge, the same way deer registration stations charge a fee for registering a deer. The previous statute allowed us to set up a station, just not for the station to charge a fee. So this is just putting into rule the fee that those stations are allowed to charge. So that fee does not come to the department, that goes to the stations for them to provide this service to hunters. And that's it. If I have any questions, I can answer those.
Anybody have any questions for Dan? Chris?
Thank you. Dan, any thought to collecting email and cell phone? I see it says telephone number, but it's a lot better to have a cell phone number.
Yeah, we typically get whatever someone provides. I think people are largely providing cell phone numbers at this point. So I think people typically provide whatever is the best contact phone number. So
how about an email?
We do get emails. Again, it's whether or not the person wants to provide it. And then there's the whether you opt in or out for us being able to contact you as well as our email. But we do get that on the vast majority of people who purchase these.
So does the form have an email line?
Well,
application rather, or
for the Unit L.
Yeah.
I have to go back.
Rather Unit, yeah, L or L. Yeah.
So, Marty, do you happen to have? I don't have the form on me.
No, but describing it as having applicant's complete name, street address and mailing address, telephone number and driver's license number, date of birth, current year's resident or non-resident hunting or archery license numbers, and signature.
So you have to have a hunting license, so obviously to purchase a Unit L permit, and we get that information when you purchase your hunting license. I suppose we could put email in there, but most people are given that when they get their hunting license if they want us to contact them.
Just more ways to communicate is better.
No, that's a good point.
Anybody else have a question for Dan?
Thank you.
And the next thing is presentation reviewing the FIS 900 Department Control Lands. Jim? We'll walk you through the changes that we are making to these.
Which one? Page?
Well, it's page 1 of the FIS 900 rules. It's the last packet of rules.
Oh, in the back section.
The back section,
Nadia, did you wanted to vote on 301.031, right?
Next month.
Okay, have it next week, okay.
I mean, unless you want to vote on it today.
No, that's okay.
Usually it's
We'll wait,
preferred.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it says in.
It's just, I don't know, it doesn't look, I'm not Go for it, Jim.
Very good. So the FIS 900 rules guide public use of our fish and game owned lands, wildlife management areas, shoreline angling lands, etc. We don't do these all that often or amend them very often, probably every 8-ish or so years. So there's significant updates to this, to these rules this time around. including FIS 90101. Historically, that was a listing of fishing game lands that these rules applied to. Now, it's simply a website address to get to our interactive WMA map, so that when we buy new lands, we can just pop them into that map, and these rules apply, rather than having to go through rulemaking every time we buy a parcel of land. 90201, the definition section was greatly expanded to be clear about what Fish and Game regulates on department lands.
Say what page that starts on.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that starts on page 3, the bottom of page 3.
In the back.
Yeah, exactly.
I broke them up. I couldn't take it.
That's fine. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Keep me in check, Maria.
No, you're fine. I was trying to help out the commissioner.
Don't worry, Jim, we went through this morning.
Yeah. 90202, where does that start? What page?
Page 3 down the bottom.
Page 3, right towards the back of the packet, so the second page number.
Yeah, 903. Page, at the bottom of page 4, 90202.
90202, that one?
Yep, that's what the problem.
90202.
After definition.
Oh, there, sorry. Yep, thank you. The formatting of this section was changed to make it more clear what activities are allowed versus prohibited versus those that need a special use permit. Previously, these activities were sort of co-mingled, making it more difficult to understand. We also modernized the language to include activities that are now commonly occurring on conservation land, such as geocaches and use of drones. And updated game camera and hunting blind language to match the state law passed a couple of years ago. And lastly, we added regulations pertaining to horseback riding and bicycles on WMAs. We know these activities occur on some properties, but the previous set of rules were silent to them. And we know a lot of our constituents are starting to use bicycles to access these lands for hunting. 90203 starts on page
7.
Say it again.
7, the bottom of page 7.
These changes aimed at making the special use process simpler. We also specifically listed those properties that can support field trials with dogs, taking into account parking, suitable habitats, and rare species concerns.
And 90204 is on page 11.
Thank you, Marty. We added language to guide issuance of special use permits for people with walking disabilities. This was not well addressed in the previous rules. With an aging constituency, we needed to make sure we have a process established to provide wildlife-based recreational opportunities for those with mobility disabilities.
90205, just farther than the page.
Very good. Bottom of page 11, 90205. Several changes were made to this section to be clear on expectations of dog walkers versus dogs used for the purposes of hunting, tracking, field trials, training, law enforcement, or search and rescue activities, and dog training dates were changed to coincide with state law. And earlier at the legislative subcommittee meeting, we talked about, let's see, making paragraph D, including paragraph D and under the exception allowed under paragraph E.
Paragraph E is at the top of page 12, where it says the provisions of paragraph A shall not apply. We want to say the provisions of paragraph A and paragraph D.
Right. Very good. 90206.
Is right there.
Okay, page 12, top of page 12, 90206. This section is entirely new and added at the recommendation of the New Hampshire Department of Justice to make it clear how the department manages agricultural leases to ensure a consistent and fair process for all.
Because we didn't have anything in writing before.
And then FIS 903,
Page 13.
Bottom of page 13. This section covers rules for specific wildlife management areas. Many of these rules were propagated to be consistent with deed restrictions or conservation easements that are on our lands. However, the prohibition over leaving boats overnight was added for several seacoast properties where this activity is known or could be foreseen to be an issue, such as at Adams Point, WMA, we had boaters who were staging their dinghies to get out to their boats. Section 904.
Page 15 for 904.
Page 15 for section 904. This section pertains solely to the Owl Brook Hunter Education Center. The ability to camp and have campfires was removed due to the manager's concerns over liability, particularly when staff cannot always be on site.
905 is on page 17. Memorial
Thank you.
policy.
Page 17, 905, the memorial policy. No changes other than minor edits are proposed for this section.
906 starts at the bottom of page 18.
906, again, an entirely new section containing rules for the Glen Cove Wildlife Management Area and the Great Bay Discovery Center. Similar to Owl Brook, these are unique properties with unique activities occurring compared to a typical wildlife management area, and so require their own set of rules. The other changes that were considered during this morning's legislative subcommittee were on the top of page 5. That is section 90202. I should have mentioned this previously. That paragraph 2, the taking of wildlife and fish shall be permitted. That will be moved up to number 1. And number 1 will be moved to number 2. And then we're also going to have a discussion to clarify what low impact means within the current paragraph 1.
Considering that and Commissioner Stoll suggested adverse impact as opposed to low impact.
And I think that covers the discussions that we had this morning.
But Jim, I got one question. I didn't notice it this morning. On the 90309, Canal Lake Natural Area.
Yeah.
Hunting of wildlife by baiting is prohibited.
That's in the easement held by the Nature Conservancy.
They big bear up there.
Oh, yeah.
Last time I knew they did.
All right, well, double check that.
So
I'm pretty sure that all those restrictions that are in there for the CLNA are part of the easement. So we'll just double check that, and I'll consult with the law enforcement.
yeah, we got to hear that it would be prohibited.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they're doing it.
Okay. Then we gotta look into that and fix it.
We'll get law on that then.
What's that?
We'll get law on that.
Right. So why have we got to hear that it's prohibited?
Well,
Because
that's
I
not
do
changing.
believe that in the easement deed, it is prohibited. So when we purchased the Connecticut Lakes Natural Area back in 2003-ish,
Right.
that was agreed to at that time.
Colonel, we might want to look into that.
Yeah, we've been baiting, they own the lottery, I believe, on their side.
I think the department's been issuing the permit.
Yeah, we have.
I don't know, it's something you might want to look into, because they've been doing it out there. I just wondering. Okay.
This is your section.
Oh, you want me to run with this?
No, with legislation, yes.
Okay. Are there any questions, or any statements, any commissioner would like to? I'm gonna go there first.
I think we talked at 902.02 on the top of page 5, also determining non-commercial recreational activities, whether guiding may have been involved as a commercial activity.
Good.
And is that going to be restricting guiding in that area? Is that what that,
That's not
is that the way I read that?
It's not the intent for us to read the guiding, so we'll look through the language to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, and it may just be a definition kind of thing. I wanted to make sure that, I do think guiding sometimes may be looked at, well, somebody's, trying to make a bunch of money, like doing the job, but I also think there are people that use guide services because they may be unfamiliar with an area, unfamiliar with a process, and they can use a guide as an educational opportunity for them to participate in hunting, fishing, or trapping in an area and do it correctly and appropriately, because I know we've had discussions about guides before, but I think 99.9% of the time they're not engaging in hunting, fishing, or trapping when they have clients out there, so they can provide that oversight, and we actually have people that are enjoying the property appropriately.
Right.
Jim, for these changes in the swaps, could we get them prior to the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll get them to you probably next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Poole.
So, I've got a list. 90101A is a link to a map. When you click on that map, I guess my first question is, so it is legal to make a law or rule applicable to a completely varying at any time target? That's okay? I'll ask that, I guess I'll ask that.
The process, yeah. That is a new allowance from JELCAR, that instead of linking, or instead of including the description, we can include a link to our
So we
website.
expect our customers, after the vote today, to completely understand 24 hours later that they can no longer walk their dogs without leashing them on, name one of the properties that we're going to act on today.
Commissioner Poole, we will not be voting today.
Why? Okay. So the day after next month's meeting, we expect our customers to know that the day after.
No, because then after we do it, goes up to jail car.
We're not changing the list of
He's meeting
properties.
whenever it's approved.
Right.
Yeah, we're not changing the list of properties. We're
But it
just,
can change at any time. I guess my point is, when I read that when I build a building, this wall has to be 2x6 or meet this insulation requirement, period. Not today, I can go on, trying to think of the property name, that Robert and Linda Thomas Revocable Family Trust property. Today, I can go on it and walk my dog. In 60 days, without any notification to anybody other than a map changing in the middle of the website, that person is to know that they can no longer walk their dog on that property.
Well, we are going to create a new, when these get approved, we'll create a new set of WMA rule signs to be posted at the wildlife management areas, and we'll get them out there. Now, I can't say if we're going to get them out there the day after the rules are approved.
Right.
Because we're not
But
going to...
the point is...
Yeah, and so I would, Kevin, I'm going to look to you, that I'm guessing that law enforcement, if they found somebody walking their dog and not following the rules, they would say, hey, you know, you should really have your dog leashed per this rule, and then not fine them right away, I would assume.
I think common sense would be, once it's all approved, you get your signs done, you get your signs up, you notify the ground. That's when you would start enforcing.
Dave, just for clarification, there was already restrictive rules about dog walking on our WMAs. This is just clarifying how, the language is changing to clarify that language. So point being, today you can't do that, and tomorrow, if we hypothetically, to your original example, if this passed, tomorrow you also still can't. Those rules still exist, they're just written more clearly.
My point is this, today, this list exists. if I'm gonna go onto a WMA, I can pick this list up and go, this is where, if these rules pass, I have to pick up, for 1,200 acres of Pine River, I've got to pick up dog poop. Right now, I can look up Pine River. Right now, there is no list, unless maybe you guys can point me to it. I went to that website. I clicked on that 3 or 4 times, and it comes up to a map. So every icon on that map, it represents a state-managed land. Is that correct?
No, wildlife management areas. So these apply to the wildlife management areas, fish and game land.
Okay.
Not DNCR land. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
I understand that. That was my point.
There's a search bar. You
So-
enter the name of the area into the search bar and then click on it. And it'll bring up the information box for that area.
So there is no list. Bottom line is there is no list. It says list, but there isn't. I looked for a list all over the website, found no list.
No, it's an interactive map.
That was my first question, and I think I've articulated my concerns.
How many do you have, Dave? How many questions?
7. 7 that I'll ask today.
All right, what I'm gonna do is ask, does anybody get any questions on what's been discussed so far? Okay, go on to your next one. I want to try and keep some order here.
Sorry?
Go to your next one.
FIS 9022 P1, this is, and I'm going to reiterate that this was the low impact non-commercial recreational activities. I believe that's going to be changed. I still firmly believe that the first 3 things that should be in the example, any example of a allowable, is hunting, fishing, trapping. I understand that other people feel differently, that that's restating what's in number 1, well, in the new number 1, but personally, I feel that the first 3 things in anything we allow should be hunting, fishing, and trapping.
And that will be after we make the switch. The first thing will be the taking of wildlife and fish.
Anybody have any questions on that one? Okay, go ahead, Dave. Number 3.
90202C8 prohibits commercial business. This was touched on, Commissioner McGonigal touched on it. Existing 90203B4 actually allows guiding as an exception. Now guiding is illegal under this proposal. Guiding is illegal on state wildlife management areas.
Well, again, that's not the intent of these rules, so we'll go through. Can you give me what page you're on?
So my point was 903, I'm sorry.
Page 6.
902.03 B4 actually requires a permit with the exception of guiding. And there's other language after the guiding.
I think, yeah, that was not our intent.
Okay. Well, and my question was, why was it removed?
I'm sorry?
Why was it removed, I guess, why was that exception removed? That's my...
Yeah. Except for...
Can I keep going?
I don't even know what page we're on now.
We were on page 6.
We were on
Page
6.
Yeah.
Any questions on what Dave just said now? Right. Go ahead, Dave, next one.
New reference, 90203B,
03. B as in boy?
as in boy. I didn't do the, sorry, Sharon, I didn't do the numbers.
That's page 7.
Page 9?
All right, that's close.
The one starting with the executive director or designee?
I think so, yes.
So, existing language is the executive director or designee shall review a request for completeness. If further evaluation is needed, it shall be requested within 14 days. It appears now, I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly, that this now says 30 days. So from the time of the permit to, not to issuance, but to acknowledgement that the application is incomplete is 30 days.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
That is accurate. There was a law passed, I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, that stipulated the 30 days for review time for any agency receiving an application for any reason, for the agency to respond to that person within 30 days saying, we're incomplete information.
So every state agency has to do that?
Yes, that is, yep, it's a state law.
Okay. Existing, I'm going to move on.
Anybody got any questions on that one? Oh, that's good.
Marty, is it no more than, or the agency?
Yeah.
The agency has to respond within 30 days,
so,
saying,
right.
you missed this information.
Right, and what this does, okay, so it's not this isn't a required change. The agency is essentially saying that it would like to have the same flexibility that state law allows other agencies to have.
For
it's not,
requesting
not
additional
required.
information?
Yeah. I mean, you could leave it at 14.
Well,
But,
then we feel like it would be in conflict with statute.
well, but that was my question, because the statute says you have up to 30 days to notify an applicant that there's an insufficiency in there. Right, so you can do it sooner if you wish to. So that's what I'm just trying to understand. Is it because it's a burden to do within 14 days that you want to afford yourself 30 days? Or
We're
is
pretty responsive.
That's, David, the root of your question too.
That's exactly the root of my question. Is it a problem with staff, clerical functions, you name it, that would require this type of an application to take 30 days to, not to review, to only determine that it's incomplete?
Generally, no.
Okay. And then, I guess this falls right to the next 2 paragraphs down. New references D, as in David. The executive director or designee shall, strikes out the 30, issue a special use permit.
And that reference, that's the statute.
Absolutely no limit.
No,
Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. That's the statute that was changed that set the limitations the agencies have to respond to an application.
What is the restriction in time frame? I issue an application today. When do you have to issue or refuse? By how long can it be?
I'd have to look up the statute to know off the top. Maybe 30 days, maybe 45 days. Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head.
I can tell you in practice, we are responsive. We get back to people pretty quickly. For significant special requests, they have to go to the lands team meeting, get input from various divisions. We meet once a month. And then after that meeting, we generally have an answer on where we want to go with that, and we get back to the applicant. So if there's no issues, they get issued pretty quickly, pretty efficiently.
Our intent was to be consistent with statute.
I would suggest that the language here is a completely open-ended language. There is no end date for issuance of a permit.
I don't think that
Are
that's
you
what the
looking
statute
for
says.
amount of days, Dave?
I'm looking for a response, and I don't get me wrong. I suspect that today with this staff, this all happens in a week. Be my guess. Diamond was right. This is going to be the far end of forever. If there is no date certain.
It is in statute. not a date, but a number of days. I don't know off the top of my head, but.
Oh, in accordance with
RSA 541.
541A is the
9.
Administrative Rules Procedure Act. It's the statute that governs rulemaking for all the state agencies.
So let's say it's 30 days. We're talking 2 months for a permit to be issued, theoretically. Theoretically. Okay. That falls to, and before we leave this section, I guess I'd ask, how many special use permits are issued on an average in a?
I'd say plus or minus, not including snowmobile trail permits, just really special uses that just come out of the blue, 15 to 20 a year.
Okay. All right. The definition of, and I apologize, I didn't write it down. When the allowable uses went from 15, organized activity went from 15 to 10. And I apologize that I didn't write down what that was.
Middle of page 7. 9023, number 5, I think.
It's not in a couple different spots.
Wow.
But we do struggle with that number. You know, what is the number where you might start having potentially significant impacts on the resources on the property? So I looked at some of the other, you know, like the Forest Society, U.S. Forest Service, what they did use as a cutoff. 10 seems to be a pretty common number.
And I appreciate that. So here's my scenario that, so a group of 11 brownies want to do geocaching on the Pine River Wildlife Management area, or areas, 1,200 acres? Is that approximately?
Pine River is owned by DNCR.
But, so that Pine River, none of the Pine River would require a permit, that's not state managed lands?
That's not
These rules only apply to wildlife management areas, not DNCR state forest or parklands. Pine River is a state forest.
So when you click on it, you need to make sure that it says WMA.
We don't have state forests or parklands on the interactive map.
Pine River shows up, so.
Oh, maybe because it's a boat access area.
That's why.
The boat
It's a boat
launch.
access.
Yeah.
So.
And so the boat launch falls under boat rules, boat access rules.
State managed land, correct?
Just the boat access.
Correct. So that the rest of it is not.
The rest of Pine River State Forest is owned and managed by DNCR.
Exactly. Take another one. 100 acre WMA. So I want to do a Boy Scout, Brownie, Girl Scout, whatever, geocaching, which I find interesting that is damaging as it appears to be perceived as, because I told people to do it for 40 years to learn how to do land navigation. We need to get a permit that's going to take potentially 2 months to get.
Yeah,
Is that accurate?
geocaching is when people stage something in the middle of the woods, wherever.
And I get it for placing them. I definitely get it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, right. So if you place it in there, you can start getting road trails being developed because people keep on going to that same geocache, and you get a trail in place. Maybe you don't want a trail, or maybe there shouldn't be a trail. And we also know that there are potential wildlife impacts from trails, believe it or not, depending on the density of the trails and where they're located. And so we don't want people just putting geocaches in potentially sensitive wildlife areas. And so, yeah, you need to get a special use permit for placing a geocache.
And I absolutely agree with that. And for the record, I absolutely agree that removing dog poop from a boat access area is a great idea. I live across from one. But I guess my point is, I'm not sure that having a group of 11 and whatever they call it, I don't want to be mom apple pie, go do a geocaching or a land nav exercise, or for that matter, hiking. It's going to require a special use permit because it's an organized activity. I'm not sure that that's a good use of Fish and Game's time. And I'm not sure about the impact that that has on the resource. I guess you pointed out that the possible negative impact of geocaching. I'm going to have to rethink all my land nav instruction. But I struggle with 10. To be honest, I struggle with 15. If we have challenges with collateral support and the process at 15, we've greatly increased the number of activities that require a permit or are just not allowed.
Well, we gotta think of other activities too, rather than just the brownies, you know, what if you had 10 plus horseback riders wanting to do it?
You bet. And I agree. I guess I gotta look back too to see if they're required to pick up the poop. I didn't see that in the rule.
Animal.
It covers all animals.
We said animal feces.
So that was my concern, was that by decreasing that number, we're increasing, probably potentially exponentially. I'm going to use my boat launch for an example. We have classes that use that to launch their kayaks. Now they could use up all the parking, which I believe is really the choke point, is parking. It's not the 500 acres, it's the parking. But they don't.
The boat access areas have their own set of rules. These rules do not apply to boat access areas.
I thought it said all state, I thought this applied to all state managed property.
WMAs.
WMAs.
Just WMAs.
Department controlled.
I'm wrong.
Maybe we just need to make it more clear that these are not applicable to boat access areas. Boat access areas fall into the.
That's too bad. I was pretty excited about it picking up the dog poop in Spencer.
How many more?
I think we covered the other ones. We covered the other ones with the dog issue when we talked before.
Anybody got any questions for Jim? Sure, go ahead for a minute.
Mine is, I don't know what the numbers are, but it was in reference to the Albrook facility. Is there?
What is your question? Who are you and where you from?
I am Gene Dabrowski. I'm from the New Hampshire Trappers Association. I'm the president. I'm a resident of Sullivan County. My question is, the trappers used to use Albrook facility for a rendezvous, and it's a 2-day event. We camp over at the time. With a certificate of insurance, is there a clause in there so that the Boy Scouts can still have a jamboree up there? If we ever use the facility, which we actually provided a log cabin we built on site for, is there a clause in there for somebody that holds their own COI to still use the facility for camping and overnight work?
Not currently. We'd have to talk to Tom Flynn.
Because that is what that facility was designed for, as far as the public and things like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and, you know, promote the outdoors. And that is, it's an awesome facility, but to not be able to have a 2-day event there on a weekend, I was just curious if there was a clause that would be put in for somebody with COI that has their own insurance. Even if there wasn't a staff member there, it's still covered.
Right. So this change was at the behest of the land manager from Albrook. So we have to consult with those.
I'm just putting that out there as something to spitball and think about.
Yep, sure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for keeping it brief, and the reason why I allowed that is because it was right on that subject.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, legislative committee, rest. Thank you, Jim.
Does anybody need a break before we take on the next two? No?
Are we going back to the?
Yes.
Okay.
I got it. I gotta get the paperwork in front of me. Like the doggy tag, I gotta have it with me. for the legislative committee, we're going back to first item number 4. Yeah. Was that item 4?
It was 4, yeah.
Yeah, it was way up.
Yeah.
Approval to accept the donation of a 100-acre fee interest property in the town of Hillsborough from Robert and Linda Thomas Revocable Family Trust, valued at approximately $200,000. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept number 4.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Discussion. No discussion?
I'll ask one. Why not?
Well, this is why we moved it.
So, with permission of the chair, I'd like to ask, looking at this fee property, and the next item, which will be an easement, can you tell me?
Item 4. Just stay on 4.
I can't, because I have a question about the discrepancy. One is a fee ownership, the other one is an easement. The easement is valued at more than the fee purchase, and with a fee purchase or a fee ownership, you get the greatest bundle of rights. It's the highest ownership you can have. So that's going to be my question. I'll wait till the next one. I'm okay with that.
Now, as long as we don't run into a repeat, 2 months ago, we're getting 2 items at the same time.
I promise.
And totally confusing.
May I rephrase the question?
Yes.
Is there a checklist when lands come before New Hampshire Fish and Game?
Sorry, John.
It's okay. When lands come before New Hampshire Fish and Game, is there a checklist that a team or you and your colleagues, when you go over a potential gift of 100 acres or an easement, do you check off boxes about how you evaluate the property? And to illustrate my question, we have an easement that's valued at $300,000 plus, and we have 100 acres that's going to be fee ownership valued at $200,000. And complete and full disclosure, I've been a licensed broker for a long time. You know that. You know what I've done for work. People run down through checklists when it comes to real estate transactions. And I've asked this question before, never really got a great answer. That's why I want to revisit it. I would just like to know what your process is and how these 2 different values came up.
Mr. Chair, may I offer something to the commission from the back of the room?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
May I offer something for the commission from the back of the room?
I'll try it.
Okay, I think I'm not really understanding the importance of the relative value because both of them are gifts. So it's not like you're assessing the value. But land is always very unique, and an easement on one land could be worth more than a fee interest on another land, depending on where that land is located and what rights that easement is taking away. Just as a kind of general, I hope that's all.
I think the question he's asking, and I'm going to put in simple form what I would ask. Is there a form that'll say, for an example, on the donation of this 100-acre property coming out of the town of Hillsborough, has it been checked for hazardous materials, etc.? Are there any liens on the property? In other words, again, it falls under beware of the free gift.
Yes.
You know, in other words, could this be something there that we could be inheriting as a liability? Is there a process?
Yes. Yeah, 2 years ago, I presented on that process. It's a lengthy process.
Yeah, I know it is, and this is why I'm trying to I'm trying to help the both of you out. Was that process done on this property?
Yes, and will be. You're one step in that checklist.
Right. Up to this point of our checklist, has it been checked, say, for hazardous material and stuff? In other words, can you give us what you've done so far to make us feel good about this? That there's nothing there that's wrong?
Yeah, we did not do an official environmental hazards assessment on this 100 acres because it's woods. We walked it, 3 miles I walked it. There's nothing there to even be considered about, concerned about from a hazardous waste standpoint. It's woods.
But I think this is what Sean's looking for, that not just this, all of it, every time we get property.
Yep.
And we don't get the paperwork, correct?
Correct. 2 words, just 2 words.
Just how fast.
I promise. I'm gonna shock Eric here. Due diligence.
Yes, we have due diligence checklists for when we buy land with federal aid, when we just buy land with state funds, when we get donated land. We have a checklist for all those scenarios. Some of them are more lengthy than others. But yes, you guys are kind of earlier on in the due diligence process. We get approval from the lands team, the director, for donations to you folks, and then we finish off the due diligence list, and then go to GNC to get their approval, and then we go to closing.
Right, but at this point, you're here to get the approval of the commission to accept this property, correct?
Yes.
And we don't have paperwork saying the due diligence has been done.
You have to take us out of order.
I have one question, if I might. If we approve to accept the donation, is that a final decision, or you have other steps to take before the department accepts it? Are we just one of the checks, or is it finalized once we?
No, you're one of the checks.
GNC has a final say.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm getting to is.
Months from now.
It's just if we say we'll accept it and we don't know the hazard accepted, and then if they do one after we say accept it, the department may refuse that.
Correct.
So we are not the final.
You are not
We're
final.
just one of the checks.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not final, it'll move on to governor and council.
We do title searches, there'll be a survey, we're doing the subdivision currently.
What we're looking for is, do we have something you're showing us? Some of this stuff has been done.
We commonly do it after you, not before you.
This is where we're having the issue.
If I may.
Director.
Thank you, Chair. So before we put our effort and our resources out on the property, we want to come here to make sure it's something that you think is of value for us to begin investigating. And then, from your approval, we begin doing all of that additional legwork. I don't want to get ahead of the commission and do all that legwork, and then all of a sudden you guys are like, you know what, there's a concern, we don't like this property, we don't want to be involved in it. We've wasted all that time. We come here first, we get your approval to move forward. And then if we find something that's of concern, we'd certainly bring it back and say, hey, we found this as a concern, we're thinking we don't want to go forward to the GNC on this. But if we don't find something, then we know we already have your approval, we move forward with the GNC process after everything's been vetted.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Chandler?
No question.
Gretchen?
No, I was gonna make a motion or something.
All right, you making a motion?
We already made a motion.
All right, we've got a motion to accept, it's been seconded. Any further discussion?
I have one quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Jim, when you look at the project, the property rather, just based on what you see now, any extraordinary capital investments that you think you may need, any internal road system, gating, the park, you mentioned the parking lot with a...
Maybe improving the parking, but that's about it.
So nothing that says to you in the next 10 years we're going to need to spend X amount of dollars to
Not at
repair
all.
culverts or,
Nope.
or anything like that. Thank you.
Commissioner DeRosa.
I have a follow-up on that. So obviously your $200,000 in value here is potentially turning to $600 from the feds on Pittman Robinson. Can any of that $600 be used to actually improve the property, or can that only be used to acquire new properties?
That'd be acquired for new properties.
Okay, thank you.
The reason why I asked about the checklist, Jim, remember when we went after the property in Milford that was next to the super? That's why I asked.
Yeah, that we would definitely do.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's my reason. So the motion has been made. Any further discussion? I don't see any. Those in favor to, on item 4, the approval to accept the donation of 100 acres. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Go on to item number 5. Your motion?
Did we want to, oh, yeah, I guess I'll start with the motion. I'll make a motion to approve to accept the donation of 54-acre conservation easement from the town of New London to Low Plains Natural Area Route 11.
Have a second? He's seconded by Jim Sheehan. Now discussion. Any questions for Jim?
He's got the presentation.
Let's go make it quick. All right, so the town of New London is offering us an additional 54 acres to add to an existing easement. So in 1994, I don't know if we procured or it was donated to us at that time, but we got an easement on 99 acres. But in 2012, 2021, we accepted donations to add on that existing easement. And in 2025, they procured an additional 54 acres that they would like to add on to that existing easement, making it 256 acres in the town of New London. And again, the estimated value there of that easement is $325,000. Just in general, New London is a better market than Hillsborough. But you can see the wetlands associated with these eased lands and potentially eased lands. The solid iridescent blue, if you will, is an emergent marsh. The hatched areas are forested wetlands. And that was the primary reason why these easements were put on this property in the first place, was primarily waterfowl and wetland bird habitat. You can see the marsh sort of at the, what would you call it, the northern end. I should explain this map a little bit better. The green polygons are the areas that are already eased. The red polygons would be the new eased areas. And so at the northern end of the top red polygon, you see the wetland system there. That's what that looks like. So a wet meadow and emergent marsh. The rest of the property is, again, a mix of hemlock, hardwood, and pine. It does have a woods road on it. It does have some vernal pools. And this is sort of at the core of that entire easement area, this beaver pond marsh system that as you conserve additional land surround it, you maintain the quality of that watershed and the habitat. And so you may realize, or perhaps not, that town lands, when they are conserved, they're not 100% conserved. They can vote at town meeting to, whatever, put a ball field on it or whatever. And so by putting an easement on this property, on this town-owned land, it will forever be wildlife habitat and available for our constituents to use. It will not be ball fields or something else. With that, I'll take questions.
So that first slide you had, Jim, had red over green. That's protecting right there, look, right there. Does that mean that the bottom part there is what we're voting on today?
No, sorry.
That's protecting.
I'm just going to come up because it's easier. You're voting on the red, the 22.1 and the 30.9 acre polygons.
Right, but the 30.9 is conservation land already.
It's town-owned land.
That's what, oh,
That's in-
town-owned.
It's in the conservation lands data layer, it's conservation land, it's only town-owned, and it
Up
does not
there,
have an easement on
the
it.
key says it's conservation.
Yeah, so if you go on the
Okay.
conservation lands map, it includes all town conservation
Oh,
land.
okay, okay.
I'm glad you used the numbers for the color.
Oh, sorry, Ray, yeah.
We've been paying for 7 years. Any other questions? Commissioner Cable.
Jim, is the easement written on that property already?
We would just fold it into the existing easement.
So there is an existing easement.
Yes.
Are there any restrictions that would affect the public and what could be done on that property? Whether it's hunt, fish, hike, trap, ride?
No, not really. I mean, it probably prohibits motorized wheel vehicles and that sort of thing, but typically our easements allow all the things that we would want them to allow.
Okay. So the fishing game easement would be over the top of the existing easement to?
No, so the green areas there are already eased by
correct,
fishing game
right.
easement.
Right.
And so the red ones would be added into that existing
Okay,
easement.
so folded in.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And one last question regarding easements. We had a brief overlap here of a discussion about fee ownership and easements. Okay, easements come with the responsibility of stewardship.
Yes.
It will be Fish and Game's responsibility to be stewards of that easement.
Yes, and all
Okay.
that is done by Charlotte Harding, who's now part of the fishing game team, previously part of the Conservation Land Stewardship Program.
Right.
But anyways, in-house staff would be monitoring that easement. With any new easements, we always make sure there's a contribution to the stewardship endowment that would allow us to monitor these. But in this case, it's adding on to an existing easement. We don't foresee any additional hardship, if you will, and so we're not requiring a contribution to that stewardship endowment in this case.
Okay, and that's only because it's being added
Correct.
to what's there.
Correct.
Okay, because we've all been into these discussions with respect to an easement and then the cost of stewardship.
Yeah.
Getting, okay, so that's kind of why I was begging the question, so, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, not seeing any.
No, I got just a comment more than a question. Great work on securing essentially $1.6 million. The math works out to on federal dollars for us to acquire new land. So thank you.
Done?
That's it. $1.6 million to buy more land.
All right,
It deserves a kudos.
I feel like it's Christmas.
Those in favor to, let me get on the right number here. Those in favor to accept the donation, 54-acre conservation easement from the town of New London. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. You're giving me good patience. Moving on. The fortress areas. Governance Committee. Commissioner DeRosa.
We have not met.
Sustainability and Strategic Planning.
Look for a email from me announcing a committee meeting on November 6th at 3 p.m. here at the headquarters.
I'll be looking. Anything else? Beautiful. Resource and Infrastructure.
Look for an email. We will be going to Glen Cove and Great Bay in November for an infrastructure meeting on site there. Surprise.
Okay, public engagement and education. Commissioner DeRosa.
Would you like me to do the item that I had either in the new business or here?
Let's do it now.
Okay, I figured you might say that.
You don't have anything else, right?
No, I don't.
Do it now.
All right. So per the email I sent to the rest of the commissioners is an official timeline and guidelines for the Fish and Game Awards, so that we can have a little more clear guidance going forward. I fumbled my way through this committee for the last 4 or 5 years, and thank you for everybody in the staff and commissioners who have been patient with me. So this will allow to clarify it a little more. So I sent this out in an email to be discussed today. So if there's any points of discussion on this, I printed it out, I did hand it out to the commissioners, and Tanya, I gave you a copy of that. You've been very helpful and guiding us along, so thank you.
You making a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve the Awards of Excellence guidelines.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to amend your motion.
Yep.
And I'm going to make the motion then on page 3. The 4th bullet point.
Yep.
The one that says late submissions may be considered. I want that whole paragraph removed. That's what this is all about, is not having late submissions. And in other words, this all came about because of the late submission that caused quite a confusion recently. Take the late submissions out. You got till the end of December to put in for an award, period. That is my motion, to remove that section. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I think I already gave the discussion on it.
If there's no
Anybody
discussion.
else want to discuss that, the removal of that section? Okay.
Can I ask for the reasoning that you left it in?
So it wasn't left in, it was added in. So there was a timeline thing that was shared with us recently, and it didn't exist in there. It's a conversation that's come up more than once, as well as moving people to different categories is another issue that we never had technically an official handbook policy on or anything in that regards. The reason I wanted it, and still want it for the record, is that there could be extraordinary circumstances with, let's say there's a category that nobody is nominated for, and we as a department feel for public relations reasons, there would be a good reason for us to late nominate somebody and still get that award out. So point being, it gives us flexibility, allows us a process to do it, but as Ray is saying, let's keep it cut and clean. I get the reasoning. I'm not gonna kick and scream on this if it's removed. It's what it is. I understand that, especially being a state agency, keeping things black and white is probably a much clearer move. So, but that was the reasoning behind it.
And the reason why I'm asking it to remove is exactly that.
Right.
Keeping it clean, this will now go into your, once upon. Sounds like I'm doing.
Oh, and we should be
very
clear, yeah, my motion was to
Yes,
put this in the
I think we do it
handbook.
now.
Yeah.
Once this is approved today, this will go into your handbook. So this will be the policy that will be followed from now on. Cutoff date's last day of December, period. We had the issue because of a late one that got put in after, and we're cleaning the act up. That's the reason of removing that. So, we have to vote on the amendment first. So the amendment is to remove the 4th bullet point on the last page of late submission. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, you lost that one. So that'll be removed. Now the motion is to take the New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission Award and Excellence guidelines before you to approve it.
As amended.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the overall? Not seeing any. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Do we need to make a motion to add it to the handbook? To make it
No,
official?
it's going, that's it. You've just accepted it. It'll
Works.
go into the handbook. What you'll do is take out the last paragraph, email it to Tanya. She will send it out to staff.
Okay.
Email it to the commissioners. I think we all have a 3-hole punch. Punch the 3 holes, put it in your hand.
If you don't, I can provide a 3-hole punched version next time.
And that puts that whole thing to bed. Any other bed items? Do you have anything else under that committee? I don't think
No,
we do.
that will be it. We will not be meeting till January to follow our new timeline that we just approved.
It gives you some of the other stuff. But anyways, Seacoast Committee report, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a longer list than normal. I'll try to be quick. Next week, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission is going to be holding their annual meeting. There's 3 species of particular interest for New Hampshire commercial and recreational fisheries. They're going to be taking the final action on the striped bass addendum 3. And as I said in the previous meetings, these can maybe a 12% reduction in the landings, seasonal closures, size limit changes, and commercial quota reductions. The Lobster Management Board is going to review the results of the lobster stock assessment that was just completed. Currently, the lobster stock is not considered depleted. However, the stock is below the fishery industry targets, and future management measures may be necessary. The Atlantic Menhaden Management, they're going to be setting the total allowable catch specifications for fishing years 2026 through 2028. Currently, the stock is not considered depleted or overfished. The Marine Division of Fish and Game developed and distributed a survey to all commercial lobster permit holders. The results of the survey will provide participants in the fishery the opportunity of say in developing new managerial measures to sustain the resource over the long term. And lastly, the Coast Guard and their buoy modernization program, a couple of months ago, I reported that there was going to be 6 navigation aids removed from the state of New Hampshire. That's been pared down to 3. That'll be the Outer Sunk Rocks off of Hampton, the Rye Harbor entrance, and the navigation can off of Little Boar's Head. And there's still availability for public comments through November 15th. That's it.
Jim, I got a question. When you do that, is that typed out?
I can type it out.
What?
He helps
I
me
can type it out.
tremendously by doing that.
Okay, could you do us all a favor? Send us that each month, so we have a copy of it, and plus it covers you.
Environmental Services and Dam Bureau, and looking at the assessments of dams across the state. And we have several dams that we own, so we'll be assessing whether or not they need repair, removal, or if they're doing well. Fisheries Division, Ballard Brook Restoration in Warner, they replaced an impassable culvert with a concrete box culvert there, improving stream flow and species connectivity. Real quick, the Wildlife Division, non-game wildlife, endangered wildlife, submitted our revised New Hampshire Wildlife Action Plan and to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we were one of only 8 states to get it in on time.
Wow.
Yeah, so game program, archery deer season obviously began September 15th. The harvest is up about 23% from the 5-year average and 52% over last year. We can talk details on that, but I'll try to keep this short, but obviously there's a lot of factors that play a role there. Muzzleloader and firearm seasons open November 1st and the 12th, so just want to put that on everyone's radar. Habitat program, we heard a lot about the Habitat program today, but a couple other things. They released 3 Habitat videos. and have had over 81,000 people reach through those videos. They did one on beach leaf disease, Fort Hill WMA, and managing fields for wildlife. They're on Facebook, Twitter, and, not Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Marine program, Marine Division continues to do their they've done access point angler intercept surveys, which is a NOAA Marine Recreational Information Program. They did 18 of those shoreside and 2 at sea, so the total of 20 of the last month. They completed oyster and reef monitoring dives. Great Bay, you heard a lot about Great Bay today. They're in the process of reviewing their 5-year management plan for NOAA right now. From the education and visitation side, they had fall programs reach 501 students and 100 adults from 9 different schools. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. You guys on the infrastructure will learn more about that when we go visit. Research and stewardship, they've completed 6 days of salt marsh fieldwork with partners and volunteers. They developed a rapid salt marsh monitoring protocol with the New Hampshire Coastal Program. And then we've extended the monitoring season into October for blue crab expansion. A lot of training and engagement going on. The Great Bay Research Symposium, that registration filled quickly. We had 18 presentations, and that's scheduled for November 15th, right? Is that correct?
5th.
Oh, November 5th. Okay, I'm sorry, November 5th. So that's coming up right around the corner. Law enforcement officers obviously actively involved in deer, bear, turkey, small game seasons, enforcing our rules and regulations and investigating cases. I've had a high volume again of search and rescue calls. I think it's because of the foliage. You know, everybody's out there to see it, but unfortunately most everyone is not prepared. The 10 essentials, people, the 10 essentials, please. Anyway, those guys are super busy. The business office, our OHRV online registration is available online. That went live October 1st, and that's going well so far. Legal coordinator, I don't think I need to speak for what Marty's been doing. I think you've seen all that she's been doing. Scheduled many hearings for readoption of rules, drafting readoption rules, variety of things. Our federal aid coordinator is actually attending a workshop right now with the other Northeastern federal aid coordinators. She also successfully has offered a position, the federal aid specialist position, and the individual accepted, so we'll have a full team again in the federal aid coordinator unit, so I'm very excited about that. We are continuing to advance the $2.8 million grant project that was to restore 4 road crossings for habitat connectivity and reduce wildlife road mortality. That finally came through from the Fed, so we're working on that. Okay, department-wide highlights and director highlights. I guess one thing I'll remind everyone is tonight is the second biennial hearing, so I hope that folks will come to that. And I've been trying to get out more. I've attended a Farm Bureau meeting. I've met with the Alton Selectmen about Downing's Landing. I've been attending the weekly Association of Fish and Wildlife Government Affairs meetings to keep up on what's happening with the federal side of things. Also, just recently attended the Northeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Directors Fall meeting. We did that virtually. That was great. Really, I want to say kudos to Renee and Dan Bergeron. We had 2 of our department staff selected to participate in the Northeast Conservation Leadership Program. Being selected for this program is really prestigious. It's a highly coveted, sought-after honor, and we're incredibly proud of these 2. They were actually able to spend their first week at the training. As most of you know, we hosted the Trapwing Matters course. That went really well. That was for our staff. We're going to try to host another one to finish up our staff training, and then we'll proceed from there. On the good news side, GNC did approve the Volkswagen mitigation grants, which will offer us some additional vehicles, these diesel vehicles that we are in so desperate need of. So that's good news. That'll help us out with our shortfalls. And then we've got a bunch of ongoing DOIT information technology stuff, but I'll hold that to the next meeting and give you all the good nuggets about that. But right now we're kicking off the effort to get all of our regions on the same system and being able to communicate much better. How was that? Short enough? Okay, I'm working on it.
I want to make a comment on your first thing you read.
Yes.
You've all gotten a phone call from you know who she's talking about, right?
Yep.
She's been getting very, using the terms illegal, using the terms corrupt. Immediately just tell them, call the AG's office and end it. That's my recommendation. I don't want to get into the whole thing. You all know who I'm talking about. Just end it. Send them to the AG. Let our lawyers do some work for once. Anything else? I make a motion, we end. We're gonna be back here in an hour.
You want to have a public comment?
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see any public left.
There's still a few.
Do we have any public comment?
We all lasted all.
Okay,
No,
not
but I would like to
seeing- Not
just,
seeing any public comment.
I'm public,
I didn't know.
yes. I just want to let you all know that this is Marty Mobley's last commission. She's retiring.
Anything else?
That was it.
Okay. Nobody lives on public. Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We're done.